224 days before Minjun returned to Earth, during a beautiful sunset in Isgard, the Saintess stood quietly, staring at something in the distance. She was interrupted when she heard a familiar voice behind her asking what was going on and why they'd been called there. As she turned around, she was greeted by none other than Minjun. The Saintess offered him a warm smile, commenting on how nice it was to be outside and feel the breeze. But Minjun was clearly irritated, pointing out that he'd been sleeping outdoors for days, so what exactly was so special about this moment? Realizing her words may have come off the wrong way, the Saintess apologized, though she reminded him that she couldn't leave the temple's territory. Then she mentioned hearing that several of Minjun's so-called colleagues were seriously injured at the Parkas dungeon. She was just about to mention their ridiculous cult name when Minjun cut her off, making it clear that none of those idiots were his colleagues and that there was no cult to begin with. He told her they just followed him on their own and got wrecked by some dark hounds, but they'd been treated and would survive. The Saintess smiled at the mention of dark hounds, amused at learning yet another term from him. As Minjun stepped a little closer, he explained that in his world, something like a cass is referred to as a hound, so he chose to call the Parkases dark hounds. Although he kept dragging the topic, it was only because he genuinely wanted to know if there was really no connection between Isgard and the monsters that kept showing up on Earth. The Saintess assured him that there wasn't. She explained that gates and monsters had been appearing in Isgard for hundreds of years, and if there was any link to his homeworld, it was simply that both were suffering from the same phenomenon. She understood why he was suspicious, considering he'd seen the same monsters back home, and even ended up in Isgard through a gate himself. Still, she reminded him that dimensional travel wasn't something easily done. Even summoning him had required an incredible amount of effort, so the idea of transporting entire dungeons and armies of monsters was ridiculous. After hearing all that, he didn't argue. He just turned and walked off, but before leaving, he told her not to back out when the time finally came for him to return home. Now back in the present, Minjun recalls how he never really trusted the Saintess to begin with. He'd done his own digging and confirmed that Isgard had been dealing with gate-related issues long before he ever arrived. He even learned that transporting something as large as a dungeon to another dimension wasn't impossible, but it definitely wasn't easy, not even for someone like the Saintess. What still bugged him was why she would waste so much holy power just to keep sending monsters. Was she trying to lure him back? Or was she burning through holy relics for some other twisted plan? It was all speculation because the only person who knew the truth was the Saintess herself. While his thoughts spiraled, his attention shifted to the idiot kneeling in front of him, still ready to die for his so-called master. Minjun was beyond done with this religious nutcase but figured he couldn't send him back now, so just to shut him up, he told him to stop calling him Minold and start using his real name, Minjun. With a face full of excitement, the fanatic tries to call his master by his proper name, but completely butchers the pronunciation. Minjun tries correcting him a few times but ends up giving up, realizing there's definitely something off in this guy's head. Pushing that aside, he asks Bongu if he can use the imitation skill. The man eagerly confirms that he can, though Minjun's a little skeptical since he barely gave him any demonic energy. Still, the fanatic thanks him over and over again for the small amount, and assures him that he can still transform into a small animal. Hearing that, Minjun points at a nearby crow and tells him to mimic the bird. Without wasting a second, the dark mage wraps himself in demonic energy and transforms into a crow. Proud of his new form, Bongu flaps around excitedly, but Minjun tells him to calm down and move alongside the Nightwalker for now. The Nightwalker looks clearly annoyed by Bongu's presence, and the two are just about ready to throw hands until Minjun steps in and tells them both to shut up and get along. Left with no choice, they quietly do as told. Minjun then tells Bongu to get his instructions from the Nightwalker, while the Nightwalker keeps an eye on him and makes sure he doesn't try anything reckless. With that, both of them take off, and as Minjun watches them fly away, he lets out a sigh of relief, though his rumbling stomach quickly reminds him that he's way overdue for food. A few days later at the camp, Kim Guangshik bursts into the locker room, practically bouncing with excitement. The guys inside look at him like he's lost his mind, but he drops the big news that the platoon's quarterly performance chart has finally been posted in front of the administrative office. That gets everyone's attention real fast. While Sergeant Lee is buttoning up his uniform, someone jokes that he probably snagged first place again, but then Guangshik lowers his voice and reveals that Lee Sung-ho actually came in second this time. The room goes silent as jaws hit the floor, and curiosity takes over. Everyone's dying to know who managed to score over 75 points in their platoon. Before they can keep guessing, Minjun walks into the room, casually announcing that he's back from vacation. As he greets everyone, some of the corporals begin whispering about whether he could be the one who topped the list. Guangshik confirms it right away, and adds that Minjun's performance practically shook the entire division. Everyone is stunned, still trying to process the news, when the platoon commander walks in and the whole room snaps to attention with a salute. The commander steps forward holding a badge, the symbol of a sergeant, and announces that Minjun is being promoted. The room goes completely still as no one can believe he's getting another special promotion this quickly. But the commander confirms the documents just arrived from division headquarters that morning, stating that Minjun was officially named the best soldier in the entire division during the Hunter field maneuvers. On top of that, his voluntary dungeon clearance during vacation got major recognition. The commander congratulates him with a proud look, explaining that this promotion came directly from Division Commander Seokyong himself. Now the platoon commander removes the 3 bars of a corporal from Minjun's uniform and replaces them with 4 bars, officially making him a sergeant. The entire unit breaks into applause, cheering for their newly promoted sergeant, everyone except Jong Han-young, who seems a bit uneasy. He pulls a folded piece of paper from his pocket, revealing the bet they all made before dungeon training about when Minjun would be promoted next. It's the same paper where Gwangshik boldly predicted 1 month and wagered his entire salary. Gwangshik is practically glowing with pride over his win, while Jong Han-young reluctantly accepts his loss. Suddenly, Minjun snatches the paper from their hands, making both guys freeze, unsure of what he's going to do. As Minjun reads through it, his expression slowly changes, and when he realizes Gwangshik actually won the bet, his face stretches into a wicked grin, making the two even more nervous as they brace for whatever chaos the new sergeant might unleash. At this point, Minjun is smiling like an idiot who's clearly having the time of his life. The reason for his happiness might just be the misery of the guys who bet on him, as Kim Moon-gi and Jong Han-young are already standing at attention, sweating bullets. Meanwhile, Gwangshik looks like his face is about to crack, nervously offering 30% of his winnings to Minjun. Minjun, fully enjoying himself, says people might think he's doing this for the money, but that's not it at all. He's doing it for their own good. Gwangshik bumps his offer to 40%. Right now, Minjun is casually forcing Gwangshik to do reps with some seriously heavy dumbbells. Once again, he insists he's not upset about the bet or in it for the money. Poor Gwangshik is on the verge of crying, repeatedly apologizing, but Minjun decides to make things more interesting by adding even more weight, which sends Gwangshik into a panic. Just when it looks like it's too much, Minjun effortlessly lifts the heavy bar with one hand. The 2 corporals nearby are stunned, not just by Minjun's strength, but also deeply worried their buddy might actually drop dead right there. According to Minjun, he's not calling this a punishment but training, since they were the ones who said they wanted to grow stronger. He then turns to the other 2 and calls one of them to join in, but they nervously decline, insisting they're already well trained and make up an excuse that they're needed elsewhere. Just as they try to slip away, they freeze when they hear the sergeant's tone shift into something terrifying. When they turn around, Minjun is wearing a wicked smile and calmly tells them it's a real shame they thought they had the right to say no. Fear instantly floods their faces, and soon after, only screams echo from the training room. A while later, Gwangshik is completely passed out, and the other 2 are left panting, clearly wrecked from the workout. That's when Minjun casually brings up a favor he wants to ask the corporals. Desperate for a break, the guys immediately agree to anything, as long as it doesn't involve more physical training. That's when Minjun starts listing a few facts, like how soldiers ranked lower than private first class aren't allowed to use the training room or the PC room for games. At first the guys are a bit confused, but Minjun just keeps going, saying they're also not allowed to use the gym, and the list keeps growing. Being informed about this, both guys take their stand and declare how unreasonable and unjustified these rules are. They look at each other and decide to work together to eliminate them. That's exactly what Minjun wanted from the start, though he still warns them not to go overboard. He assures them that he'll handle convincing the sergeants and leaves the rest to the 2 of them. As soon as he dismisses them, they run as fast as they can out of the training room. Meanwhile, Gwangshik finally regains consciousness and tries to follow them with his trembling body, only to be stopped by Minjun once again. Gwangshik turns around, expecting more torture, and Minjun does not disappoint. He casually drops the bomb about a personnel reshuffle and informs him that Gwangshik has been officially placed under his squad from now on. That means poor Gwangshik has to train with Minjun every day from this point forward. Elsewhere, in a completely different environment, a dungeon holds the dangerous snake mine, a snake-like monster that lives mostly underground. Unlike snakes on Earth, these creatures aren't venomous but explode when they die. That's why their tails must be removed before killing them, since the tail acts like a detonator. Otherwise, they'll blow up. It turns out Minjun's platoon is the one handling this mess. To prevent an explosion, the platoon commander and his squad are carefully cutting off tails so they can clear the dungeon safely. Normally, a small team of experienced hunters is assigned to creatures like these, but this time it's different. While Sergeant Lee is about to be attacked by one of these monsters, the tail is suddenly severed, and the creature taken out by none other than Minjun, who has already dealt with tons of these in Isgard all on his own. While Minjun is as refreshed as ever, the others are completely exhausted, so they decide to take a 10-minute break. The soldiers rest beneath the shade of trees, Sergeant Lee inspects his weapon, and Minjun is all smiles because he just unlocked a new skill called Agility Boost, which increases his agility stat by 5. He wishes a class-specific skill would pop up, but even this one feels pretty great. As he's checking out his stats, a familiar voice suddenly speaks to him through telepathy. It's obviously the clueless Bonggu, letting Minjun know that he has detected a strong wave of demonic energy. That immediately puts Minjun on alert, and he's eager to know where this fool is. But he gets hit with a shock when Bonggu says he's in Incheon right now. A few days later, on the weekend in Incheon Metropolitan City, Minjun finally arrives at the location. Bonggu lands on his shoulder and explains that he didn't do anything reckless, and only kept watch the entire time. Since there are no monsters around, he suspects this could be the byproduct of a dungeon. He also reveals that there was no human presence in the house until yesterday, but someone is definitely inside now, and the demonic energy is still coming from that place. Bonggu wishes his master had arrived yesterday, but Minjun barely made it out for an overnight stay. Still, he puts on his mask, ready to move in. He knows this might technically look like trespassing, but in his eyes, they're just getting rid of something dangerous hidden inside that house. Upon entering the house through the window, Minjun scans the room and spots a purple crystal resting on top of the TV cabinet. As he carefully approaches, he senses the demonic energy radiating from it, though it doesn't feel harmful. Just as he reaches out to grab the crystal, he freezes when a voice warns him not to move. Minjun knows he's been caught red-handed, but doesn't dare turn around. To his surprise, the voice belongs to none other than Eun-seo. A little while ago, Yoon-seo was in her bedroom, completely unaware that a familiar guy had just intruded into her house. She was casually chatting with her mom on the phone, who sounded pretty excited to tell her about going on a movie date with her dad. Yoon-seo couldn't help but smile, thinking how her dad can be cute sometimes. While she was typing a message, a strange rattling sound echoed through the house, immediately putting her on alert. Wasting no time, she opened the door and peeked outside. When she realized the noise was coming from downstairs, she quietly snuck down to check it out, and that's when she spotted a hooded man approaching the crystal. Without hesitation, she told the intruder not to move, and, convinced that no one these days would be dumb enough to be a thief, she demanded he reveal his identity and what he was doing there. Minjun slowly turned around, eyes wide with shock. He never imagined he'd run into Eun-seo again, especially like this. The whole situation felt ridiculous. He had come looking for a dungeon byproduct giving off demonic energy, and the house just happened to be Yoon-seo's. To top it off, Bonggu quickly pointed out that it was the dumb Nightwalker who detected it first, not him. Well, it's no surprise to find this item at the division commander's house, considering his role in the Hunter Corps, but the real coincidence is that this girl just happens to be home today. It's like fate keeps throwing them together no matter what, just like it did back in Hwacheon, and that thought alone makes Minjun frustrated. But his attention quickly shifts to the alert girl behind him, who is now commanding him to put his hands behind his back and freeze. Of course, Minjun, being greedy as always, decides he's not leaving after coming all this way. When he ignores her warning, Yoon-seo launches a high kick, but Minjun dodges it with ease while digging through his pocket for a pen and a folded piece of paper he had been randomly carrying around. Still focused on getting this so-called robber to leave, Yoon-seo throws a flurry of punches using her boxing skills, but Minjun, staying true to himself, keeps dodging every single one while casually scribbling on the paper. When she jumps into the air for a kick, Minjun's gaze shifts to her movements, and he admits to himself that she's really good and will probably get promoted to sergeant soon. Eventually, after dodging enough and clearly getting bored, he blocks one of her attacks, grabs her wrist, and shoves the paper into her hand. Yoon-seo starts sensing that this guy isn't just some thief, but someone who's clearly trained. She tries to hit him one more time with a kick, but as expected, he dodges it again and uses the chance to create some distance while keeping his eyes on the crystal. Then, with a clever dash, Minjun rushes forward, but instead of attacking, he grabs the crystal and leaps out the balcony window like it's nothing. Yoon-seo stands there on the balcony, frustrated that she didn't land a single hit, and then notices the paper he forced into her hand. Out of curiosity, she opens it, and her face turns crimson red as she becomes absolutely livid, because all he wrote on it was the word burb, just to piss her off, like always. Minjun manages to escape the house and finds a safe spot near the woods. Without wasting time, he pulls out the crystal and starts inspecting it, immediately noticing that it holds more demonic energy than most monsters he's encountered. The fact that a 2-star from the Hunter Corps had this just lying around at home tells him it's clearly harmless to humans, but that doesn't explain the weird energy coming from it. He's certain now that it's a monster crystal, but it's unlike any he's ever seen, even back in Isgard. Monster crystals are rare minerals found in monsters, and they vary based on the age and danger level of the creature. Each one contains a certain amount of mana proportional to its size, which is why they're considered valuable loot for any hunter. But a crystal packed with demonic energy? That's something completely new to Minjun. He's never seen or even heard of such a thing. Dropping it on the ground, the crystal splits open, and without missing the chance, Minjun immediately absorbs all the demonic energy into his body. Right away, a system notification pops up, telling him that his demonic energy stat has shot up by a ridiculous amount. Getting such a major power boost without even lifting a finger makes the whole trip more than worth it. Whatever the Saintess might be planning behind the scenes, Minjun knows he can't waste time worrying about it. Just then, another update appears from the system, informing him that he has unlocked 2 new skills, Demonic Energy's Singularity and Demonic Energy Grasp. Minjun is more than happy to gain new skills and quickly checks the details for Demonic Energy's Singularity, which allows his demonic energy to become colorless and odorless, making it undetectable to the surroundings. This puts him at ease since he was getting worried that the higher his demonic energy stats rose, the harder it was becoming to control the pressure it released, so this skill was exactly what he needed. On top of that, the Demonic Grasp skill lets him physically control demonic energy. To test it out, he extends his hand and points at dumb Bonggu, who immediately gets lifted into the air. Minjun isn't sure if there's a weight limit, but it's still impressive. After that, he gives both Bonggu and Nightwalker a task, to search for dungeons and their byproducts suspected of holding demonic energy. As a small reward, he tosses each of them a bit of demonic energy to snack on. But of course, the 2 idiots start fighting over whose portion is better. When Minjun turns around to glare at them, they suddenly act like lifelong brothers who have never had a disagreement. In a surprisingly good mood, Minjun asks Bonggu if he's ever had Korean food before, and just like that, the 3 of them head to a Korean restaurant. The table is filled with all kinds of dishes, and the moment Bonggu takes his first bite, he bursts into tears, overwhelmed by how delicious the food is. His dramatic reaction makes Minjun question just how dumb this guy is, while the waiter stands there completely stunned by the performance. Still, as Minjun watches him eat, a small smile creeps onto his face. He remembers what they used to eat in Isgard, dry, flavorless biscuits, and realizes this might be Bonggu's very first real meal. Instantly, Minjun's phone starts vibrating in his pocket. When he checks it, he sees a flood of messages from Guangxik, practically begging him to respond. Guangxik sounds like he's on the verge of a breakdown, urgently reminding the sergeant that their guerrilla training starts next week and that the schedule looks absolutely insane. Fast forward a bit, and the guerrilla warfare training has officially kicked off for the awakened soldiers who have surpassed the limits of normal humans. At first, the training looks pretty standard, squats, burpees, the usual. But while most of the soldiers are struggling to keep up, looking half dead already, Minjun is the only one actually enjoying himself. By the time they get to the 3rd course with 3 rope bridges, he's swinging across them like a kid on a playground, while the rest are clenching every muscle just to avoid falling off. Then come the drop-down drills, which he nails effortlessly too. Finally, a man in a hazmat suit shows up and gives a random lecture, forcing everyone to memorize the national anthem until the 4th verse and the full Hunter military pledge. After that, they're dismissed. Most of the soldiers drag themselves straight to their beds, which are just as uncomfortable as the food they're about to face. Others sit in misery, staring down at the disgusting meal in front of them, clearly regretting everything. They expected rest and something edible after training, but instead, they're stuck with food that's barely fit for consumption. At this point, some of them genuinely wonder if the division master holds a personal grudge against them. On the contrary, Minjun is actually acting like a lunatic, devouring the food like he's dining on a 7-course meal at a 5-star restaurant. One of the guys nearby is too scared to eat much, terrified of what the washroom might be like afterward. Later that night, the platoon commander, Captain Seo Jong-woon, arrives at the camp. Sergeant Lee immediately stands up and salutes the seniors. The commander tells everyone to be at ease and informs them that since everyone is clearly exhausted, the instructors will be standing watch at the camp instead. He also congratulates them for doing well in the training so far, but his tone shifts as he brings up something more serious. With full determination, he suddenly shouts, commanding everyone to give their absolute best in tomorrow's trench combat. The next morning, each platoon is hyped up, cheering on their own squads. The trench combat itself is pretty straightforward, in a square arena meant to simulate a trench. The objective is to either push your opponent out or defeat them within the bounds. 2 heavy soldiers are currently dominating, throwing people around like rag dolls and slamming them into the ground. The losing soldiers pile up one after another as the referee calls an end to the match. It's the 16th round, 3rd fight, and the 1st Battalion, 2nd Company, 1st Platoon, 1st Squad takes the win. No weapons are allowed, and no one is allowed to bring in outsiders. It's all about raw physical strength. Despite how it looks, trench combat holds special meaning for the 4 battalions of the 104th Division during this hunter guerrilla training. The 2nd Battalion commander, Colonel Lee Junbyum, is stunned to see them win, finding their strength insane, especially since these are the same guys who dominated last year. Colonel John Sung-kyun from the 2nd Battalion agrees and reminds him that these guys were just corporals last year, and now they're sergeants. Even when 10 squads charged in together, that heavy guy, Choi Sung-woo, pushed them all out by himself. But then, the 3rd Battalion commander, Colonel Ko Jung-cheol, casually drops the info that Sergeant Choi Sung-woo recently passed his promotion exam, yet the 1st Battalion has been stalling it. This instantly sets off Junbyum, and he starts yelling at Seong-kyun, accusing him of delaying the man's promotion just so he could keep using him in trench combat, since a higher rank would have made him ineligible. Sung-kyun loses it too, denying everything and insisting he never agreed to any of that. This kind of clash was expected. Trench combat always turns into a proxy war between battalion commanders. While Colonel Ko Jong-chol watches with a smug grin, enjoying the chaos, the 4th Battalion commander, Yoo Ji-hye, keeps quiet. When the referee announces that next up is the 4th Battalion, 4th Company, 4th Squad, Yoo Ji-hye looks a bit nervous since only one squad from her entire battalion made it this far. Everyone knows that the training gets tougher for battalions that underperform. Choi Sung-woo and his team step away from the stage while Min-jun and his team are sitting at the corner watching the match. That is when Choi Sung-woo spots Min-jun and greets him for the very first time. He confirms that he is the same hunter Min-jun from the 2nd Battalion. At first, he seems to be very happy to meet Min-jun, claiming that he never thought he would meet a celebrity here, the fastest to become the sergeant. But then he scoffs, as he had high expectations because of the rumors, declaring that Min-jun is really stupid. As soon as Gwang-shik and Jung Han-young hear this, they both get angry and stand up to deal with this shit, but they both get frozen in their place when that giant guy puts his hands on both the guys to stop them, declaring that he meant to say it in his heart. With a smirk, he apologizes and leaves with his squad with a mocking laugh. Both Gwang-shik and Han-young are left angry, their faces crimson red, but Min-jun tells them that it is all okay. However, Gwang-shik's anger is not letting him hold back, and he wants to crush that guy into pieces. Meanwhile, Min-jun, who seemed to look calm seconds ago, is now like a red tomato who is going to explode any time. But still he manages to control his unbearable anger, assuring them that it is okay because they will get to meet this bull-like guy again soon enough. The trench combat resumes, and the 4th Battalion, 4th Company, 4th Platoon, 4th Squad is now on standby. Corporal Cha Marie sits quietly, clearly annoyed. She's irritated because she doesn't see the point of these fights. They're exhausting, and worst of all, they involve physical contact, which she finds absolutely disgusting. Corporal Yoon Hyeju agrees, saying the whole thing feels unfair, and they always get trashed if they don't perform well. She doesn't understand why they even need to do all this just to crown some so-called guerrilla king. But while Hyeju vents, Mari is more concerned about their battalion commander being pissed, especially since they're the only squad from their battalion that made it this far. As Mari glances toward their commander, she gets uneasy seeing her stern expression. But at this point, what's done is done. The referee calls for the 4th Battalion, 4th Company, 4th Platoon, and 4th Squad to enter the arena. Their squad commander, Sergeant Oh Set-byul, fires them up, telling the girls to win this and take the Guerrilla King title. She's the only one looking genuinely hyped and confident, while the rest are just trying to hold it together. The round begins, and Mari starts running around the arena trying to avoid being touched, while Hyeju is holding her ground, pushing her opponent back with effort. In the back, Ha Jae-eun and Kim Na-yoon are struggling as a massive soldier grabs both of them at once. Suddenly, a single hand grips the guy by the collar and slams him across the arena like a rag doll. It's Sergeant Oh Set-byul, completely stealing the spotlight with her absurd strength. Before the guy can even react, she's already in her stance, and without warning, she charges in and tackles him with a brutal spear move, knocking him out cold. His body skids outside the ring, officially out of the fight. Set-byul casually dusts her hands and turns to her squad, her eyes locking on Mari, who's still darting around like her life depends on it. Just when a soldier chasing Mari grins, thinking he's finally got her, she suddenly grabs his wrist and slams him to the ground so hard that a loud thud echoes through the arena, leaving the crowd stunned. Oh Set-byul can't help but smirk with pride, while Mari glances back at the unconscious man and reminds him that he was warned to stay away from her. After dealing with that weak guy, her attention shifts to Yoon Hyeju, who's still locked in a struggle with her opponent. The guy smirks when his friend runs over, pointing out what he thinks is an opening to take Hyeju down, but in the chaos he doesn't even realize he's the one about to get knocked out. Before he can react, he's flipped upside down in the air and launched out of the arena. This time, it's none other than Yoon Seo, using her precise combat instincts to finish him off. The guy fighting Hyeju, caught off guard by what just happened, lets his guard down too, and Hyeju doesn't waste the opportunity. She grabs his arm and slams his back to the ground with all the strength she's got. Now that the small fries are out of the picture, only two massive, bulky guys remain. They never imagined the girls would manage to push even one of them out, but now that it's happened, they're ready to take things seriously. With confidence, they charge in, claiming they'll be the ones to win this round. But before they can even land a proper hit, both are stopped dead in their tracks by Oh Set-byul, who's holding them back with both arms. The guys laugh at first, thinking she's crazy for trying to take them on alone, but that laughter fades fast when they realize they can't even budge her. As they struggle to comprehend just how strong this girl really is, the rest of the squad charges in, and together they launch both bulky guys out of the arena in a single sweep, leaving everyone watching in complete shock. The referee announces their victory, and the whole squad erupts in celebration. At this moment, Minjun quietly observes from the sidelines, acknowledging that the girls actually have solid teamwork, and on top of that, they're clearly well-trained and skilled. Even Gwangshik and Hanyung nod in agreement, convinced that this squad will be the one to go up against that giant bull Choi Sung-woo in the quarterfinals. They're both excited at the idea of watching that beast finally lose. Still, Hanyung hopes Sung-woo makes it to the finals, because he wants to face him himself and teach him a lesson. But looking at how strong the girls' squad is, they start wondering if they'll even get that chance. Then again, they remind themselves they've got Minjun and Lee Seung-ho on their side, so there's no way they're losing. Just then, Mari spots her crush Minjun and instantly waves at him, who stays serious as usual. Meanwhile, Gwangshik and Hanyung both blush like fools, assuming she's waving at them instead. Yoon Hyeju, completely fed up, tells Mari to stop being such a simp, while the guys are even worse simps, now deciding to cheer for the 4th Battalion instead of focusing on fighting that giant bull. Watching them act like this, Minjun lets out a quiet chuckle, fully convinced that these two are absolute idiots. At the judges panel, Colonel Lee Junbyom looks visibly disappointed, especially since he had high expectations for the boys. He points toward the 4th Battalion commander, asking if she's proud now, but she stays silent and doesn't give him a response. Next up, the referee calls out the next 2 squads for the battle, and this time it includes Minjun's squad. At that moment, Yoo Ji-hye's gaze shifts to Minjun as she remembers he's the same guy Seokyung is oddly obsessed with. Her curiosity kicks in, and she becomes genuinely interested in seeing what he's capable of. As all the boys walk toward the arena, Hanyung casually informs Minjun that if they take first place in this competition, their squad will earn a vacation. The second he hears that, Minjun's mood drops. He has zero interest in going on a trip with a bunch of idiots. Gwangshik and Hanyung burst into laughter at his reaction, joking that maybe they should just give up on first place. Ignoring their nonsense, Minjun keeps his eyes locked on the arena, a smirk tugging at his lips as he confidently declares that they'll still enjoy that vacation, but separately. The test begins as both teams stand face to face, waiting for the signal. The coach tells them to get ready, and the moment the whistle blows, the match kicks off. Hanyung and Lee Seung-ho charge straight at their opponents while Sergeant Kim Minjun stays perfectly still. Lee Seung-ho grabs 2 opponents by the waist and starts pushing them back with ease. Gwangshik locks onto another guy, grabbing him by the waist and remarking how light they feel. He and Brownhead lift their opponents effortlessly. But among the other team stands a guy built like a tank, Muscle Man. He sizes up Hanyung and then Lee Seung-ho, clearly trying to decide who to go after. Just then, Minjun finally steps forward. As he approaches Muscleman, he sizes him up, thinking the guy might be pretty useful for testing something. Muscleman doesn't hesitate and charges at Minjun. With a small grin, Minjun admits his control still needs work, but at the very least, he can mess with balance. He activates his E-rank skill, Demonic Energy's Grasp, and instantly throws Muscleman off balance, making him crash to the ground. Confused and pissed, Muscleman gets back up and charges again. Minjun calmly uses his ability once more, yanking the guy's arm and slamming him to the ground again. Now Muscleman is both shaken and terrified, unable to make sense of what's happening. But Minjun knows better than to keep using the skill in plain sight. He figures if he keeps messing with a guy like this, someone might start getting suspicious. He signals for his opponent to get up and come at him again. This time, Sergeant Kim Minjun doesn't rely on his ability, and instead puts his faith entirely in his agility and physical strength. As soon as Muscleman stands, Minjun charges in at full speed, grabs him by the waist, and throws him back, ending the match with ease. Their team wins and advances smoothly to the final round. However, Minjun points out that even though they won, they won't be facing the 4th squad from the 4th Battalion in the final, contrary to what Gwangshik and Hanyung had hoped. The coach announces that the final battle will begin shortly and instructs both teams to head to the arena. The opposing team features a powerhouse named Choi Sung-woo, known for his strength. As both squads make their way into the arena, Hanyung turns to Gwangshik and asks if Choi Sung-woo used to be a wrestler. Gwangshik confirms that Sung-woo wrestled until high school, only quitting because of his awakening. Hanyung remarks that, judging by his moves, the guy was definitely skilled back then. Gwangshik adds that he's heard Seung-woo won pretty much every competition he entered. That only pisses Hanyung off more, especially since Seung-woo now uses cheap tactics to win matches. Both Hanyung and Gwangshik are fuming, practically steaming from the head, but Lee Seung-ho tries to hold them back. Minjun explains the real reason behind their anger. It's not just that Choi Sung-woo's team won the quarterfinals, it's how they won. Their opponents in that round were all girls, and the final score was 6-0. Not a single one was pushed out of bounds. Minjun says it's not exactly Seung-woo's fault for winning within the rules and not throwing any punches. It's more about how weak the opposing team was. But Gwangshik isn't having it and shouts at Seung-woo, promising to teach him some manners. Meanwhile, Minjun watches them and thinks they still have a long way to go. If they're this mad at Seungwoo, then the only real answer is to crush him in the match. There's really no need to get so fired up before the round, but tension is already in the air. Both teams finally step into the arena and stand face to face. Han-young glares at Choi Seung-woo and asks if he plans to take them all on by himself too. Choi Seung-woo smirks and replies that he wouldn't dare in the presence of the infamous Sergeant Lee Seung-ho, but then mocks them by asking if they could even win, even if he did go solo. That smug grin instantly sets off both Han-young and Gwang-shik, but Seung-ho keeps them in check. Then, Choi Seung-woo shifts his gaze to Sergeant Kim Min-jun and says he thought beating up Min-jun's little girlfriend might get a reaction, but the guy looks completely unfazed. That statement throws the whole team off. Gwang-shik, utterly confused, asks what he's talking about. Seung-woo casually mentions the pink-haired girl from the 4th Battalion, saying she seemed real hyped to see Min-jun and was cheering like crazy. Gwang-shik, half blushing and half furious, yells that she wasn't waving at Sergeant Kim Min-jun. Han-young jumps in and says it's true Min-jun doesn't care about girls, except Lumi from Dungeon Power Fighter. That random comment throws everyone into an awkward silence, and for a moment, the battleground feels more like a high school hallway. Suddenly, Choi Seung-woo and his entire team burst into laughter. Seung-woo mocks them, asking if they're seriously talking about that beginner NPC from that trash game. Still laughing uncontrollably, he teases if Lumi is really Sergeant Kim Min-jun's crush. Han-young thinks the guy's a real dumbass, while Kim Gwang-shik and Brownhead glance at Min-jun with visible fear. Seung-woo keeps going, laughing louder as he says he's only ever heard of losers like that, and now he's face to face with one, someone who has a crush on a 2D girl. The coach steps in, telling both teams to get ready, and reminds them that the match will begin at the sound of the whistle. Choi Seung-woo chuckles one last time while wiping tears from his eyes, saying he'll go easy on Min-jun since the guy needs to get back safe and sound to his precious little Lumi. The whistle blows, and the match begins. Both teams rush at each other, but Sergeant Kim Min-jun remains perfectly still. Choi Seung-woo charges straight at him, grinning and asking if Min-jun is still spacing out. Out of nowhere, Min-jun tilts his head and slams it right into Seung-woo's face. The sound of the slam echoes across the entire arena, making everyone freeze. Choi Seung-woo's forehead starts turning red and swollen, but he quickly brushes it off, claiming he just took a wrong step and asks the coach to let it slide this once. The coach glances toward the judges for a decision, and they give a silent nod. He then tells both teams that this one will be overlooked, but reminds everyone that striking is banned and they're expected to avoid it from now on. Choi Seung-woo is clearly pissed, but forces a grin, saying it was cute of Sergeant Kim Min-jun, though he won't be going easy on him anymore. The coach resumes the match and Min-jun smirks, saying he's not done being cute just yet. He jumps away from Seung-woo and dashes toward Han-young and his opponent, slamming into both and throwing them out of bounds, even though Han-young is his own teammate. It's clear Min-jun's still pissed at him for mentioning Lumi Nuna. Seung-woo is stunned, watching as Min-jun begins taking out his own squad members along with their opponents. Next, Min-jun charges at Kim Gwang-shik and his rival and tosses them both out effortlessly. Then he moves toward Lee Seung-ho and his opponent. Unlike the others, Seung-ho holds his ground, calling Min-jun a psycho bastard while reinforcing his body and preparing to counter. He manages to hold Min-jun off for a bit, but eventually gets overpowered and tossed out too. Now the arena holds only two people, Sergeant Kim Min-jun and Choi Seung-woo. Min-jun is grinning darkly, a sinister mist seeping from his mouth, his eyes pure white, and every muscle in his body flexed and brimming with power. Choi Seung-woo is scared to even look at him, thinking just what kind of messed up psycho this guy is. The fat dude gets up and demands the match be stopped since the guy is taking out his own teammates. The gray tells him they can't stop it because he hasn't broken any rules yet. The fat argues that even if there aren't any broken rules, it's not normal to take out your own team. He asks if the gray plans on taking responsibility if someone gets seriously hurt. Molai cuts in, saying the judge will handle things on his own just like in the previous matches. Sergeant Kim Min-jun suddenly steps in and starts wrestling with Choi Seung-woo, catching him off guard and making him question what's even going on. First, the guy made sure it was a one-on-one, and now he wants to wrestle him. Choi Seung-woo thinks Kim Min-jun made a mistake. Sure, the guy's strong, but wrestling isn't just about brute strength, it's all about technique. He digs deep, uses all the strength he's got, and pulls off a solid move to try and throw Kim Min-jun out of bounds. But no matter how hard he tries, the guy doesn't budge an inch. Then, out of nowhere, Kim Min-jun lifts him clean off the ground and slams him hard. He tells him to get back up. Choi Seung-woo gets back up and thinks this guy is seriously dangerous. He chuckles nervously and says he's going to surrender, but before he can even finish the sentence, Sergeant Kim Min-jun grabs him again and hits him with a suplex. He locks him by the waist and lifts him up, saying he can't let him surrender just yet. He pulls him up and throws him again. Before he can do it a third time, Choi Seung-woo quickly says he gives up, and he's stepping down. Sergeant Kim Min-jun looks him straight in the eye and tells him to listen closely. He says Lumi Nuna isn't just some two-dimensional character, she's his absolute favorite. Then he slams Choi Sung-woo to the ground one last time as foam starts dripping from his mouth. The coach announces that the match is over and declares the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Company, 2nd Squad, 2nd Platoon the winners. Sergeant Kim Min-jun steps off the stage and looks toward his team, the same guys he threw out during the match. He tells them nervously that he might have gotten a little too excited, but his teammates cheer for him and congratulate him on the win. Kim Kwang-sik says it was the most impactful match he's ever seen, and that he took down the infamous Choi Sung-woo in a straight-up one-on-one. Han Young adds that it was refreshing to see Choi get absolutely destroyed, and asks if Kim Min-jun took them out on purpose just to make things more dramatic. Kim Min-jun thinks it's nice to see how positive everyone is, but Lee Sung-ho cuts in and tells him that no matter what reason he had, team kills can't be justified. He tells him he's really disappointed, and walks away from the team. After a short walk, Lee Sung-ho smiles to himself. Thinking he can't afford to let his guard down, he might be the next target. He tells himself that next time, he'll be the one to beat Kim Min-jun. Meanwhile, the winners are awarded medals for their performance by Mole Eye. At the same time, Sir Hunter steps out of the tent to use the bathroom, wondering why they have to go through guerrilla training during times like this when they're part of the Hunter Corps. Just then, a voice calls out to Eyebrows from behind. He turns around and blushes as he sees Yunseo standing there. The next day, right after the short but intense guerrilla training of the 104th Division, the gang starts plotting something. Kim Kwang-sik says they need to approach this carefully. Han Young adds that even if they get punished for it later, they still have to push forward. Brownhead looks nervous because of the sergeant, but Kim Kwang-sik tells him not to be scared now. He says they just need to lure them to the rendezvous point, and once they're there, they won't be able to do anything. Han Young turns to Mohawk and says his role is the most important, asking if he can handle it. Mohawk stays silent. They were already scheming before the exhaustion from training had even worn off. Kim Kwang-sik reminds them they don't have much time and need to stay as efficient as possible. Han Young agrees that picking the right rendezvous point is key and asks Kim Kwang-sik what location would be best. Lee Dongjin suggests the eastern part of Gyeonggi since it's the borderline, and going any farther would take too long. Kim Kwang-sik agrees and tells him to keep throwing out more options. Suddenly they get a message from Hunter Sun Yunseo. They chat briefly about locking in dates to use the vacation they earned from the game, and Sun Yunseo tells them to pick the place. Then she casually asks if they can give her Kim Min-jun's number. Han Young tells Kim Kwang-sik that they might get caught. Kim Kwang-sik turns to the gang and asks if he should just say he doesn't have Kim Min-jun's number. Han Young shakes his head and says no one's going to buy that. Lee Dongjin points out that Kim Min-jun is on their team, and they all live together, so it'd be way too weird to say they don't have his number. Han Young bails, saying the plan's already screwed, and tells Kim Kwang-sik that he was the one who started this, so the rest of them don't know anything about it. He walks off and tells Mohawk and Lee Dongjin to leave too before they all get dragged into trouble, leaving Kim Kwang-sik standing there alone. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun walks into the gym and opens his status window. He checks his stats and sees that his power has gone up by 5 and his agility by 1. He thanks Choi Sung-woo for the help, saying that once he hit 60 points, it became almost impossible to level up. He lays back and starts lifting dumbbells, clearly hyped that his strength jumped by 5 points. He's in the middle of his reps when a voice suddenly interrupts him. Someone calls out to him, and Kim Min-jun sits up and asks Mage what's going on. Lee Bong-gu says he wants more soup. Kim Min-jun snaps and tells him he already gave him money to buy food on his own. Lee Bong-gu casually thanks him and says he forgot to mention something about a mysterious aura. Kim Min-jun pulls a face and says he should have led with that. He asks what kind of aura it is, wondering if it's some kind of demonic energy or something. Lee Bong-gu says it's not demonic, but it's definitely foreign. He says he's never felt anything like it in Isgard. Kim Min-jun asks him why he suddenly stopped talking. Lee Bong-gu says the soup just arrived and he'll share the rest of the details after eating. Kim Min-jun curses at him in frustration, calling him a piece of shit. Right then, he gets a text from Son Yunseo asking if this is Hunter Kim Min-jun's number. He groans, wondering what's going on today and why everyone suddenly wants to talk to him. He questions how she even got his number and decides he's just going to block her. But before he can do it, Kim Kwang-sik comes running toward him and begs him not to. Kim Min-jun has no idea what he's talking about. Kwang-sik asks if he got a text from Son Yunseo and tells him this is a rare chance, pleading with him to think about his squad members. He grabs onto Min-jun's arm and says he's sure Min-jun is going to climb high in rank, and it's only natural he'll need to start managing his subordinates' mental health. Kim Min-jun looks at him, completely confused, and asks if he was the one who gave his number to Son Yunseo. Kwang-sik keeps holding his arm and finally admits that yeah, it was him. He tells Min-jun to be a little more understanding, reminding him they're all giving their best to the military, and something like this is the only thing that keeps them going. Kim Min-jun gets furious and asks if he's planned something. Kwang-sik blinks in confusion and asks if Min-jun didn't already hear it from Hunter Sun Yunseo. Kim Min-jun looks at him with a grim expression and tells him they're in the training room, so he better answer straight. Kim Kwang-sik stares back at him with a terrified look, like his soul just left his body. A week later, the gang arrives at Thunderland, all dressed in their military uniforms. Han-young thanks Sergeant Kim Min-jun, saying he never imagined they'd actually make it there. Kim Kwang-shik shoots Han-young a glare and snaps that a traitor like him has no right to thank anyone after ditching him during the plan. Kim Min-jun cuts in and tells Kwang-shik that they're not here because of him, it was all thanks to Cheol-ho. Han-young says he didn't expect Sergeant Lee Sung-ho to approve the plan so easily, and jokes that maybe Kim Min-jun really is just a regular guy after all. Kim Min-jun tells his platoon that the only reason he agreed to this was because he'd rather do this than spend the whole day hanging out with them. Han-young starts looking around, wondering where the girls are. His face lights up with joy and blushes as he spots them in the distance, standing near the ticketing area. Just as the group gets distracted by the girls, their attention quickly shifts to a huge figure standing behind them. Kim Kwang-shik and Han-young freeze, thinking the guy must be some kind of gangster. But Kim Min-jun stops them and orders them to salute, telling them that the man is the commander of the 107th Division and that he saw him on TV giving a briefing. Sun Tae-ho starts walking toward their group, but his daughter Yoon-seo grabs his arm and reminds him that he said he was only dropping her off and asks him to head back now. Sun Tae-ho smiles warmly and says he just wants to meet the hunters she works with, and then he'll leave. He gently taps her hand away and keeps walking toward Kim Min-jun. He stops right in front of him, towering over him, and his expression shifts from cheerful to serious. He looks down at Min-jun and asks if he is Kim Min-jun. Both gangs enter the park. Chamari tells everyone to hurry up and get in since they don't have much time. She grabs Kim Min-jun's arm and walks with him. Kim Kwang-shik and Han-young also rush in, telling the girls they've planned the most time-saving route. The girls are impressed and thank them. Everyone heads inside except for Set-byul and Lee Sung-ho, who stay behind and glance at each other. Set-byul says she's not really into places like this. Lee Sung-ho nods and says he prefers spending his weekends just working out alone. Set-byul smiles and says she figured he'd be that type too, then asks how heavy he can squat. The two of them start walking into the park together. Inside, the group goes on rides, buys souvenirs, and grabs cotton candy. After a while, Lee Sung-ho and Set-byul end up in an arm wrestling match. Later, Kim Kwang-shik tries his luck at a shooting game but only wins a consolation prize. Han-young, thinking he can outdo him, tells everyone to watch how the pros handle it. He plays the same game and ends up with the same prize. The girls in the background burst out laughing while Kim Kwang-shik reminds him not to forget their bet, that the loser has to pay. Han-young complains that something must be wrong with the gun. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun walks over and notices that the second prize for the same game is a Dungeon Power Fighter First Anniversary Limited Luminuna keyring. He grabs the rifle, fully determined to win the prize no matter what. With sharp focus, he hits all the targets in quick succession. The store owner tells him there's still one shot left in the gun, but Kim Min-jun replies that he doesn't need it. His goal was to win the second prize from the start. Emerald and Ginger talk among themselves, with Emerald pointing out how cleanly he hit every target, while Ginger wonders why he didn't bother with the last one. The store owner hands him the Luminuna keyring. The girls look on, confused about what the prize even is. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun is visibly thrilled, saying it was totally worth coming here. Han-young and Kim Kwang-shik laugh in their usual weird way, while Cha-marie simply smiles, happy to see him enjoying himself. The rest of the team moves ahead, but Kim Min-jun lingers behind, staring at his prize. Just then, Yoon-seo calls out to him and asks what he talked about with her father. In a flashback, Kim Min-jun is seen standing in the parking lot with her father, Sun Tae-ho. Sun Tae-ho apologizes for pulling him away even though he's technically on vacation. Kim Min-jun says it's no problem and asks what he wanted to discuss. Sun Tae-ho looks at him seriously and places a hand on his shoulder, tightening his grip. But Kim Min-jun stays calm and doesn't flinch. After a moment, Sun Tae-ho lets go and says it seems Kim Min-jun is well trained. He then reaches into his car and mentioning that his daughter owes Min-jun, pulls out an item from a dungeon. He explains that the item is typically meant for general rank hunters, but he's going to hand it over to Min-jun anyway. He adds that the military's evaluation system isn't always 100% accurate, and the item should boost his stats in random proportions. He gives him a bracelet. Kim Min-jun grins on the inside, thinking he just hit the jackpot but keeps a straight face on the outside and thanks Sun Tae-ho. Sun Tae-ho tells him he's only giving it to him under the condition that he keeps up with his training. Sun Tae-ho tells him not to mention this to anyone, then adds that if Kim Min-jun ever visits Daejeon, he should give him a call so he can treat him to a meal. Finally, with a serious look, he warns him that if he tries anything funny with his daughter, he'll kill him. Kim Min-jun calmly replies that it won't happen, slipping the bracelet into his pocket. Back in the present, Kim Min-jun tells Yoon-seo that he didn't talk much with her father. He just said to give him a call if he ever visits Daejeon so they can grab a meal. Yoon-seo asks why her father would invite him for a meal, and Min-jun says it might be because he saved her once, so maybe he wants to repay him. Yoon-seo remembers clinging to him back when he rescued her and blushes slightly. She apologizes that he had to deal with her father, but Kim Min-jun flashes the card Sun Tae-ho gave him and says he's going to make sure it's a really expensive meal. Just then, the rest of the gang shows up. Kim Gwangshik turns to Cha Marie and asks why she suggested they all hang out. She says it's because she wanted to repay Kim Min-jun for getting revenge on Choi Sung-woo after he crushed her team during trench combat. Sayeotbyul joins in, agreeing with her and telling the guys that lunch is on them today so they can order whatever they want. The boys stare in disappointment, realizing that this whole outing was planned just for Kim Min-jun, and even the so-called revenge he took wasn't for them. It was all for Lumi Nuna. Meanwhile, back in Daejeon, a group of soldiers stands outside a dungeon gate as a crow with glowing purple eyes perches nearby. The 107th Division's 3rd Battalion commander, Colonel Lee Sang-jin, looks down at his tablet and sees a report showing 100 kilograms of mana stone inside the cave-type dungeon. He smirks, his face full of greed, while the crow watches silently from the pole behind him. Meanwhile, both platoons wrap up for the day and say their goodbyes outside Thunderland. Afterward, the boys head toward the bus station to return to base. Kim Min-jun gets called out by Lee Bong-gu, who says there's a problem. Kim Min-jun warns him that if he's about to ask for food again, he's going to kill him, but Lee Bong-gu quickly says it's about a dungeon. It turns out the crow that was spotted near the dungeon in Daejeon was actually Lee Bong-gu. He tells Kim Min-jun that the dungeon looks suspicious. Kim Min-jun reminds him that he said the dungeon was still under investigation and now he's on vacation in Daejeon planning to rest. Lee Bong-gu explains that while it's true the dungeon was restricted and guarded before, that's no longer the case. He says the area has suddenly gotten a lot busier. Kim Min-jun tells him to keep sending updates until he arrives. The next day at noon, Kim Min-jun shows up in Daejeon near the dungeon and notices the soldiers carrying loads of mana stones. He pulls out his hunter card and wonders if showing it would get him a tour of the dungeon. Right then, Lee Bong-gu appears, now in the form of a pigeon. He tells Kim Min-jun that he changed into this form to stay on watch until Min-jun arrived. Kim Min-jun asks if he really heard right about there being 100 kilograms of mana stones inside that dungeon. Lee Bong-gu confirms that's exactly what he heard. He says he's not sure exactly how much that is, but it definitely seems like a lot. Kim Min-jun tells him it's about 100 times more than what he could ever find in Isgard, even if he got lucky. He explains that this is an enormous amount of energy, and Earth is already working on ways to weaponize it. Suddenly, a wave of otherworldly energy bursts out from the dungeon, and Kim Min-jun asks Lee Bong-gu if it's the same energy he sensed before. Lee Bong-gu confirms that it is, but says he still can't quite figure out what this aura is. He doesn't sense any monsters, but the energy feels deeply ominous. Kim Min-jun says it makes sense that Bong-gu can't recognize it. After all, he's only seen this type of energy once in his life. Without wasting time, Kim Min-jun rushes toward the dungeon. Out of nowhere, large tentacles begin pouring out from it. The commander immediately orders his platoon to stand back, abandon the mana stones, and fall back. One of the soldiers shouts that there are still platoon members inside, but the commander tells him to follow orders and stay put. Kim Min-jun watches and says this energy confirms it, this is a fake dungeon. One of the soldiers stops him, asking who he is and warning him to stay back since the situation is dangerous. Kim Min-jun calmly walks past and tells him he is Sergeant Kim Min-jun of the 104th Division, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Company. He says he's going to open the dungeon from the inside and tells the soldier to report everything to the 104th Division. With that, Kim Min-jun jumps into the dungeon just as the tentacles close the entrance behind him. The commander stares at the dungeon gate, now completely sealed off by the tentacles, and thinks to himself that they're in serious trouble. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Kim Min-jun finds a group of soldiers from the transportation team: Private Lee Soo-hwan, Private Jong Jongdae, Private First Class Kim Sung-won, Private First Class Choi Tae-hyun, and Private First Class Lim Dae-song. Kim Min-jun asks if anyone else is with them. Lim Dae-song replies that there's no one else and asks who Kim Min-jun is. He introduces himself to the squad and tells them the situation doesn't look good, so he'll explain more later. He then asks them to check their equipment and make sure no one's injured. Looking over what they've brought, Kim Min-jun asks if that's all the gear they have with them. Kim Seong-won explains that they're just the transportation team, so that's all they've got, and mentions that the inspection team already left. Kim Min-jun quietly wonders who in their right mind would send the transportation team in alone, and he starts to suspect something shady is going on. He tells the squad to gather their gear and explains what's really happening. He says they're inside a fake dungeon, a rare and dangerous phenomenon. To put it simply, they're inside a massive monster that lures people in and swallows them whole, and this time, the bait was mana stones. He tells them not to panic and assures them that he's taking full responsibility for getting them out of this mess. The squad asks Kim Min-jun if he really knows how to get them out of there. He tells them that as long as they follow his orders properly, he'll make sure they all get out safely. He instructs them to kill any monsters they encounter and keep moving toward the center of the dungeon. Just then, goo-like monsters start to appear behind the squad. Kim Min-jun steps in front and tells them to stay behind him. He takes out each monster with a single punch, clearing the path effortlessly. Watching in awe, Lim De-song turns to his squad and says that Kim Min-jun is exactly the guy everyone in the hunter community talks about, the one who became a sergeant in record time, the invincible monster of the hunter corps. Outside the dungeon, Sun Tae-ho arrives and grabs Lee Sang-jin by the collar of his uniform, furious that he sent the transportation team in alone. He demands to know what Lee Sang-jin has been doing. Lee Sang-jin nervously explains that he was just trying to retrieve mana stones from the dungeon. Sun Tae-ho yells at him, asking if he was ever ordered to do that. He reminds him that the directive was to investigate the dungeon, so how dare he deploy soldiers without a raid team, especially into a fake dungeon. Lee Sang-jin, clearly shaken, stammers that after 2 weeks of investigation, it was confirmed the dungeon was empty, which is why he decided to send the team. Sun Tae-ho, trembling with anger, snaps that 2 weeks isn't nearly enough, and that Lee Sang-jin sent soldiers without permission. He accuses him of doing it just to boost his own record. He warns that no matter how this turns out, Lee Sang-jin better be ready to take that uniform off. Letting go of his collar, he adds that if there's even a single casualty, he'll personally make sure he ends up in prison, and tells him to start praying that everyone comes out alive. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Kim Min-jun is still tearing through the goo monsters with ease. He turns to the squad, annoyed, and demands to know why they're getting involved when he clearly told them he'd handle the monsters himself. One of the squad members says they just want to help him too. Kim Min-jun sighs and asks if they remember his order, to push through these parasites and reach the center. He explains that these monsters are created by the fake dungeon to absorb any prey that walks inside. Most importantly, once they reach the heart, which is at the center, the monsters will start swarming like crazy. He tells the squad they need to save their stamina for that moment, because if they get hurt now, it'll be a serious problem once they reach the core. The squad nods, fully convinced by his reasoning and ready to follow his orders. But Kim Min-jun has a different reason in mind. He thinks to himself that it's not about protecting the squad, it's because he's racking up a ton of experience points from this dungeon. A wicked grin forms in his mind as he laughs to himself and tells himself he's going to keep all those points for himself. With that greedy look still on his face, he orders the squad to keep moving forward and leads the way. After walking for a while, they finally reach the center where the dungeon core is located. Kim Min-jun looks back and sees the squad exhausted and out of breath. He thinks to himself that fake dungeons drain stamina if your stats are low, and if he'd made them fight earlier, most of them probably wouldn't have made it this far. He points toward the core and tells them that they need to destroy it in order to escape. As the swarm of goo monsters begins to stir, Kim Min-jun turns to the squad and says it's their time to shine. He tells them not to get hurt or killed and to play defensively for their own safety. The soldiers quickly fall into a defensive formation, ready to hold the line. Kim Min-jun charges toward the enemies, thinking to himself that he needs to hold back on using his abilities since there are other people around. Even so, he tears through the monsters one by one with ease. The creatures hesitate, clearly terrified of facing him. But Kim Min-jun doesn't stop. Laughing menacingly, he tells the monsters to hand over all those juicy experience points. It starts to feel like he's more of a monster than the things he's fighting. Suddenly, the dungeon core begins to glow and releases a cloud of poison. Kim Min-jun quickly tells his squad to stay back. He'll be fine thanks to his poison immunity, but the others might not survive depending on the type of poison. He braces himself to use his abilities, but just then, something in his pocket starts to glow. It's the item Sun Tae-ho gave him. The bracelet reacts to the demonic energy in the air, and its hidden powers awaken. Kim Min-jun mutters that he was saving this item for later, once he reached a point where it would be hard to increase his stats. His status window appears, revealing that the bracelet allows the user to cast any spell they know of, even those they don't possess, but it will disappear once used. Kim Min-jun grins, realizing just how lucky he is to have this in a moment like this. Without hesitation, he activates the skill of the Dark Knight he once faced. He summons a demonic sword that tears through space, blasting nearby enemies into a dimensional rift. With one powerful swing, the sword opens another rift, sucking in all the surrounding monsters and landing a heavy blow on the dungeon core. As the battlefield quiets for a moment, Lee Bong-gu rushes over and tells Kim Min-jun they have a problem. The soldiers outside have planted a mana bomb at the dungeon gate. Kim Min-jun tells him not to panic, assuring him they're heading out soon, just as he smashes the last remaining pieces of the core. Outside the dungeon, the bomb is successfully installed. A soldier hands the trigger to Division Commander Sun Tae-ho. He holds it, thinking it would be great if they could use it to force the gate open, but the dungeon's reaction is too unpredictable to ignore. Just then, he's informed that Kim Min-jun from the 104th Division has gone inside. Another soldier confirms it, saying it's been verified that Kim Min-jun is in the dungeon along with their personnel. Sun Tae-ho yells, asking why he went inside when this isn't even his area of duty. The soldier explains that, according to witnesses, Kim Min-jun charged in after stating his affiliation. Sun Tae-ho asks if contact has been made with the 104th Division, and the soldier replies that their commander is already on the way. Another soldier informs Sun Taiho that all troops have been evacuated to a safe location. Sun Taiho thinks to himself that it's already been 4 hours since they went in, and they don't even have the right equipment. He wants to believe in Kim Min-jun, but he knows he can't wait much longer. Just as he's about to press the button, the dungeon gate starts to crack. Sun Taiho rushes over and orders his men to alert the medics and get convoys ready for any survivors. He also tells them to bring all available officers to the gate fully armed. Without hesitation, Sun Taiho grabs a tentacle from the gate and begins tearing it away. The medics arrive, and he tells them to stand by while he keeps ripping through the dungeon's defenses. Finally, the gate opens and the soldiers come out safely. Sun Taiho breathes a sigh of relief, happy to see them all return in one piece. He asks the soldiers about their condition, and they respond that they successfully cleared the dungeon. Kim Min-jun steps out of the gate with the last 2 soldiers and salutes Commander Sun Taiho, who smiles and returns the salute. That same evening, at the 107th Division's headquarters, Kim Min-jun and Sun Taiho sit together for a conversation. Kim Min-jun explains that he was on vacation when he came to Daejeon. Sun Taiho asks why he was in Daejeon in the first place. Kim Min-jun tells him he was there to meet with him, since Sun Taiho had offered to treat him to a meal. Sun Taiho raises an eyebrow and says, "So it just happened that while coming to meet him, Kim Min-jun passed by the dungeon, and when the incident broke out, he jumped right in." With a confident and cheerful smile, Kim Min-jun admits that's exactly what happened. He adds that when he saw the anomaly, his body just moved on its own before he even had time to think. Sun Taiho chuckles and says the more he looks at Kim Min-jun, the more eccentric he seems. He praises him, saying that clearing a fake dungeon solo is a serious accomplishment, and he truly appreciates his effort. But he also warns him that he's starting to stand out too much. He's climbing ranks faster than usual, and after what happened today, the Hunter Corps headquarters is bound to start watching him. He tells Kim Min-jun that if any of that causes problems, he shouldn't hesitate to come to him. Kim Min-jun thanks him and says he'll definitely reach out if anything comes up. Sun Taiho says that he won't be able to treat him to a meal just yet, since he's buried in work, but if Kim Min-jun has anything else he wants to ask personally, he's welcome to. He says that if it's within his capabilities, he'll do it for him. Without missing a beat, Kim Min-jun immediately asks for a promotion, his eyes sparkling with hope. Sun Taiho quickly shuts it down, saying that's not something within his authority. Kim Min-jun pouts a little, but then his eyes drift to a crystal on Sun Taiho's desk. He senses a faint yet refined demonic energy radiating from it. Sun Taiho catches him eyeing it and asks if he wants it. Kim Min-jun's eyes light up again, and he says it's his first time seeing that kind of stone, but he'd love to add it to his collection. Sun Taiho tells him that his house was recently burglarized and that this is the only one left. He picks it up and hands it to Kim Min-jun, mentioning that although it hasn't been identified yet, it's been deemed safe for humans, so he can keep it. Sun Taiho watches him and thinks to himself that, just like with Yunseo, he keeps getting pulled into things involving Kim Min-jun, and truthfully, he doesn't mind it. Then, with a serious look, he asks Kim Min-jun what kind of relationship he has with his daughter. Kim Min-jun casually responds that they're just fellow hunters, nothing more, nothing less. That answer seems to put Sun Taiho at ease, and he smiles, saying he's already taken up too much of Kim Min-jun's vacation time and tells him he can go. On his way out, Sun Taiho asks him to let his commander know to come in. Kim Min-jun nods respectfully and leaves. Outside, Lee Bong-gu is chomping loudly on a grilled carp, shouting about how delicious it is. Kim Min-jun tells him to shut up and eat properly, or he's going to wake up the whole neighborhood. Then, without hesitation, Kim Min-jun crushes the crystal in his hand. Demonic energy bursts from it and flows into him, pushing his demonic energy level to its threshold and unlocking a new ability called Demonic Energy Whip. Kim Min-jun grins and says this completely changes the game. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in Gyeonggi Province at Hunter Corps headquarters, Lieutenant General Kim Chang-mo is shouting at Sun Taiho for his incompetence. He tells him that the 107th Division is about to be audited, so he better be prepared. He adds that Sun Taiho should consider himself lucky that it's ending with just this, because he could have easily stripped him of his uniform. He orders him to send Lee Sang-jin to HQ first thing tomorrow. Just then, the door swings open and another high-ranking officer walks in. Lieutenant General Kim Chang-mo immediately stands and salutes. The officer tells him not to push his subordinates too hard, mentioning that he could hear him yelling from outside. Kim Chang-mo quickly apologizes and says he'll take care of it right away. The officer takes a seat and says he's received the report, then asks if it was Kim Min-jun again. The officer is none other than the Hunter Corps commander himself, General Gu Hakcheol. Meanwhile, the commander rushes back to his barracks in his car. He gets out and heads straight into the commander's office, urgently looking around. Kim Min-chul salutes him. The commander asks where they are and if it's what he thinks it is. He confirms with Kim Min-chul whether he is the target, and Kim Min-chul tells him it's correct. The commander sits down and says those bastards clearly timed it to strike when he was away. Just an hour ago, 2 members from the Special Task Force arrived, First Sergeant Yu Tae-won and Sergeant First Class Jang Min-soo. Kim Min-chul explains that he understands what they're saying, but they showed up early in the morning and are demanding to meet one of their soldiers, who just returned from vacation. Yu Taiwan interrupts him and asks if he realizes under whose orders they've come. He politely requests Kim Min-chul to cooperate this once. Kim Min-chul tells them that both the battalion and company commanders are absent, so this doesn't seem like the right way to go about it. Yu Taiwan asks if he needs an official notice, and says they can arrange that immediately if required. He assures him that they'll leave quietly after a brief meeting and asks him to bring Kim Min-jun. Suddenly, Kim Min-jun arrives and notices the insignias on the officers, realizing they belong to the special unit that works directly under Hunter Corps headquarters. Yu Taiwan introduces himself and shakes his hand, saying it was incredible how Kim Min-jun rescued so many hunters by jumping into that fake dungeon. He adds that the Hunter Special Task Force needs capable people like him. Kim Min-jun asks if this is a scouting offer. Yu Taiwan explains that they are deployed in special situations like high-risk dungeon raids, VIP protection, overseas missions, and more. He keeps talking about all the perks and benefits of being a Special Task Force hunter, but Kim Min-jun is lost in his own thoughts, thinking that none of it matters unless they offer a big promotion. Then he's in. Yu Taiwan says they also deal with crimes committed by civilian hunters who aren't affiliated with the military, so strong combat skills are crucial. He tells Kim Min-jun that his outstanding performance hasn't gone unnoticed by headquarters, which is why he's here to offer him something he deserves, including a special promotion. Kim Min-jun gets excited hearing the words, special promotion. Yu Taiwan explains that their unit doesn't accept regular soldiers, so if Kim Min-jun joins the Hunter Special Task Force, headquarters will immediately promote him to Staff Sergeant. Jang Min-soo adds that the task force offers more chances for advancement than other corps since they're deployed to places where achievements stack fast. Kim Min-jun thinks there's no reason to turn this down. Just then, Yu Taiwan's device starts buzzing. He takes it out and places it on the table. Kim Min-jun asks if that's a phone, and Jang Min-soo tells him it's a special device issued to the task force. It's not a smartphone but a secure communication tool, since most of what they handle is confidential. Kim Min-jun suddenly tenses up and asks if he'll be allowed to use the internet and computers as much as he wants. Yu Taiwan tells him that security is top priority in the special task force, so personal electronics and internet access are strictly prohibited in the barracks, and even discouraged during vacations. Jang Min-soo says it's a small price to pay for serving the country at that level and receiving such exceptional treatment. Kim Min-jun is heartbroken to hear this. However, Kim Min-chul starts to smile mischievously. Yu Taiwan offers Kim Min-jun a card and says they don't extend this offer to just anyone, so he should think it over. But Kim Min-jun rejects it and says he'll be staying with them. Both officers are shocked by his response. Yu Taiwan asks why he's turning it down, and Kim Min-jun tells them that if he joins the Special Task Force, he won't be able to play Dungeon Power Fighter. Jang Min-soo is furious and yells at him, asking if he's really throwing away such an opportunity over a game. He tells Kim Min-jun that the generals held a meeting just for this, and now he's rejecting it because of Dungeon Power Fighter. He questions whether Kim Min-jun is trying to be funny, but Kim Min-jun calmly responds that he isn't joking, and the game is an essential source of energy for him. Yu Taiwan nods and says he understands his reasoning, then says they'll be heading out. Kim Min-chul quickly gets up and opens the door to help them leave faster. Just as they step outside, Jang Min-soo turns back and says he's sure Kim Min-jun's accomplishments are exaggerated, and that he's just making excuses because he's scared he wouldn't survive in the special forces. He adds that without lucky breaks like this, someone like him would never pass the entrance test. That's when Kim Min-jun finally snaps and asks how they can be so sure he wouldn't pass. Jang Min-soo walks back, stands face to face with him, and asks if he wants him to prove it. Kim Min-chul tells Kim Min-jun to stop and asks Jang Min-soo what he's trying to pull. Yu Taiwan puts a hand on Kim Min-chul's shoulder and asks if they can use the training center for a while. Soon after, Kim Min-jun and Jang Min-soo face off in the training room. Jang Min-soo says the entrance test is a freestyle duel with a senior Special Forces member and offers Kim Min-jun a chance to back out if he's not ready. However, Kim Min-jun tells him that he has no intention of joining the Special Forces, but if he wins, then Jang Min-soo will have to apologize to him, politely. Jang Min-soo is pissed and shouts how dare he step up with that joke of a weapon and talk like that. He says he's going to fix Kim Min-jun's attitude. Yu Taiwan steps in to announce that the fight will be 3 rounds, each lasting 3 minutes, and starts the match. As soon as it begins, Jang Min-soo charges in, moving swiftly toward Kim Min-jun with an attack, but Kim Min-jun dodges it. Jang Min-soo immediately follows up with a second strike that connects and sends Kim Min-jun flying into the wall, but instead of showing pain, Kim Min-jun just smirks. In a flashback, Kim Min-chul asks Kim Min-jun what he's planning to do, and Min-jun casually replies that he plans to win, of course. He then asks if something bad might happen if he actually does win. Kim Min-chul says it's possible, since that squad is known for having a high ego, and he's worried they might do something reckless if their pride gets hurt. Kim Min-jun smirks and says if that's the case, he'll just let him land 1 hit. Back in the present, Jang Min-soo walks away from Kim Min-jun, who's lying on the ground. Yoo Tae-won says the spar is over and tells Kim Min-chul to take him to the medics. Kim Min-chul keeps a poker face and stays silent. Yoo Tae-won approaches Kim Min-jun and tells him he should still be proud for managing to dodge the first ultimate attack. But from the Hunter Special Task Force's perspective, he's still not strong enough. Just before Yoo Tae-won can finish, Kim Min-jun gets up, smiling as he brushes off his uniform. Both Yoo Tae-won and Jang Min-soo are stunned to see him still standing. Jang Min-soo wonders how he's even on his feet, since the attack landed exactly where it was supposed to. Yoo Tae-won asks Kim Min-jun if he really wants to continue, warning that pushing himself too hard could cause injuries for both of them. Kim Min-jun shrugs it off and says he wants to go again. Jang Min-soo scoffs that he's being arrogant and swears to make him regret getting back up. Kim Min-jun wraps his whip in demonic energy and gets ready to strike. Jang Min-soo lunges in and unleashes a flurry of sword attacks, but Kim Min-jun blocks every single one. Then, in a swift move, he catches the sword with his whip and tosses it aside, leaving Jang Min-soo completely unarmed. Afterwards, Kim Min-jun strikes Jang Min-soo with a few lashes from his whip. Jang Min-soo tries to stay composed and compliments Kim Min-jun, saying he's skilled with that whip, but claims the attacks won't do much damage to him. Just then, the pain from the lashes starts to kick in, and he screams like a little girl. Yoo Tae-won is stunned to see a big, muscular guy like Jang Min-soo on his knees from those hits. Kim Min-jun pulls the whip back to strike again, and Jang Min-soo, now panicking, pleads for him to stop, but Kim Min-jun doesn't listen and lands a direct hit on his chest. The pain nearly knocks Jang Min-soo out. Kim Min-jun thinks to himself that the attack was high level, and while the Special Task Force is definitely elite, it seems like this is Jang Min-soo's first time getting hit by a whip infused with demonic energy. He notes that even thick-skinned orc warriors would drop after a single strike from that thing. He raises the whip again and tells Jang Min-soo he should stop strutting around like he's all that just because he's decent in combat. Yoo Tae-won asks Kim Min-jun to stop, but with an evil grin, Min-jun cracks the whip again, this time landing it on the ground between Jang Min-soo's legs. Just imagining the impact causes Jang Min-soo to faint. Yoo Tae-won rushes over to catch him, baffled that the same guy who didn't flinch while getting beat up by a horde of orcs is now unconscious from fear alone. He wonders if a training whip could really do that much damage. Turning to Kim Min-jun, he says that when a subordinate messes up, it's on the higher-up. He offers a sincere apology in Jang Min-soo's place. Kim Min-jun admits he acted beyond his rank and apologizes in return. Yoo Tae-won hands him a card and tells him to reach out if he ever changes his mind. Kim Min-chul mocks them and asks if they'd like to get treated by their medics. Yoo Tae-won declines and says they need to leave soon. Back in the present, Lee Junbyum laughs and asks where Kim Min-jun is. Kim Min-chul tells him that he's off training by himself right now. Lee Junbyum says he'll report directly to Division Commander Seo-kyung that Sergeant Kim Min-jun has turned down the Special Task Force's offer. He adds that while Kim Min-jun rejected it today, he's sure they'll want him even more now. There's no way they'll give up that easily. Kim Min-chul replies that in that case, they should come up with something to keep Kim Min-jun right where he is. Colonel Lee Junbyum smiles and says Division Commander Seo-kyung already predicted this might happen, so there's nothing to worry about. Now, all they have to do is wait and see what kind of offer the commander has prepared for Kim Min-jun. The next day, Division Commander Seo-kyung bursts into laughter after hearing from Colonel Lee Junbyum that Kim Min-jun rejected the Special Task Force's offer. He says those arrogant bastards must be fuming right now. He adds that no matter what kind of privileges they offer, if Kim Min-jun decides to join them, no one can stop him. That's why he had been cautious about the situation, but now it has resolved itself. The commander agrees and says it's time for them to step up. Seo-kyung nods and says it's the perfect moment to show proper appreciation to Kim Min-jun. He makes a call and asks if the thing he mentioned is ready, then smirks confidently and tells them to bring all the related files over immediately. Meanwhile, back at the barracks, Lee Sung-ho announces to the squad that starting today, the commander of the 2nd Platoon's 2nd Squad will be Sergeant Kim Min-jun. Han-young asks if Sergeant Lee Sung-ho is getting promoted. He shakes his head and says he's planning to try out for the staff sergeant rank since he has enough points for a promotion, which is why he's handing over his position to Kim Min-jun. He asks if anyone has any objections to this decision. The squad responds that they're fine with it and agree that Kim Min-jun is the only one who could fill Sung-ho's shoes. Lee Dongjin then says he has a question for Sergeant Kim Min-jun. He asks if the rumors are true. Was it really Kim Min-jun who cleared a fake dungeon all by himself? He adds that he was on vacation that day too. The rest of the squad joins in and says the entire hunter community is buzzing about what happened. Kim Min-jun casually confirms that it was him. He just happened to be in Daejeon right when the anomaly occurred and got swept into it. The whole squad is stunned that their sergeant is that powerful. Kim Kwang-shik asks if that's why he's being appointed as a captain and wonders if he received any rewards on top of it. Kim Min-jun admits that he did get a few perks for clearing that dungeon. The squad gets all fired up, curious about what those perks might be. A few days later, at the Goblin Colony dungeon, Some soldiers are fighting goblins while Han-young and Eyebrows talk about Kim Min-jun. Eyebrows asks if it's really true that Kim Min-jun received an offer from the Hunter Special Forces so quickly and then rejected it. Han-young confirms it and adds that he even beat up a first-class sergeant in a sparring match. Eyebrows finds it hard to believe and says that people outside the military probably wouldn't buy into any of it. He asks if it's also true that the division commander appointed Kim Min-jun as their squad commander and plans to promote him to staff sergeant within a year once he earns enough points. Han-young nods and says that even Sergeant Lee Sung-ho supported the decision when he heard the news. Just then, their conversation is cut off when an orc suddenly charges out of the woods, roaring. But both soldiers keep straight faces, completely unfazed by the monster's appearance. The orc swings his club to attack them, but out of nowhere, a glowing whip lashes across the air and smacks the orc right in the eyes. The monster drops his weapon and screeches in pain, holding his face as the whip retracts. The soldiers stare at the wounded beast, unfazed, as it screams in agony. Kim Min-jun arrives at the battle, and it turns out he's the one who struck the monster with his newly acquired whip. Eyebrows comments that it's personal equipment given to Sergeant Kim Min-jun by the division commander. Han-young adds that even the platoon commander doesn't have personal gear yet, so Kim Min-jun is clearly being treated differently. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun continues to whip goblins down like a ruthless master. Eyebrows asks why it had to be a whip, and Han-young explains that the division commander let him choose any weapon he wanted, and Kim Min-jun picked the whip. Eyebrows says it makes sense now why he'd turn down the Hunter Special Task Force when he's being given this kind of treatment. Han-young agrees and adds that it's extremely rare for a sergeant to receive personal equipment. The division commander had to sign more than 10 documents just to make it happen. While all this is going on, Kim Min-jun is deep in thought, realizing that this weapon is way better than he expected. Thanks to the Mana Stone, he doesn't even need to use his own demonic energy to make it powerful. He thinks that if this little guy stays with him, he'll climb the ranks way faster than a year. The next Saturday at a Chuncheon restaurant, Kim Min-jun sits at the table, ready for dinner. Yoon-seo is with him and asks if they should start eating. Kim Min-jun looks at her and asks why she's even asking him that, and more importantly, why she's having dinner with him in the first place. The old lady running the kitchen comes over and tells Yoon-seo the food is ready. Yoon-seo smiles, thanks the chef, and starts eating. She looks at Kim Min-jun and asks if he's not going to eat. She tells him not to worry, she's paying so he can eat as much as he wants. Kim Min-jun tells her that's not the issue. He asks how she knew he'd be out today, coming to Chuncheon, and to this exact restaurant. Suddenly a thought hits him. He asks Yoon-seo if it was Kim Gwang-shik who told her his plans. She glances around nervously and says it's all just a coincidence. Kim Min-jun doesn't buy it, and his expression darkens like a villain in a drama. She quickly apologizes and admits that it was Gwang-shik, but begs him not to be mad at him since she's the one who asked. Kim Min-jun, clearly pissed, says it's up to him to decide how mad to get and mutters that this is all pretty strange. Yoon-seo, confused, asks what he means. He suddenly asks her if she likes him. She's completely caught off guard, blushes hard, and tells him that's nonsense, asking why he's suddenly being so casual with her. Kim Min-jun grits his teeth, crosses his arms, and says she can talk casually too since they're close in age. She says that might be true, but insists she doesn't like him or anything, and tells him not to get the wrong idea. He asks why she's eating dinner with him then, and adds that he's pretty sure she took a vacation today because she heard from Gwang-shik that he was going out. She admits it's true but says there's another reason she's here. She brings up the previous incidents, the enclosed dungeon at the training center, the Red Boar Gate at the Wachin Public Welfare Office, and the recent fake dungeon. She says that wherever he goes, something always happens, so she was curious if anything would happen this time too. Then she snaps back to reality, realizing how crazy it sounds, and gets super embarrassed that she actually said all that out loud. Kim Min-jun laughs nervously and says it's not like he's a walking disaster. Deep down though, he's anxious, wondering if she's starting to figure out the truth about him. Kim Min-jun notices her badge and realizes she's been promoted to corporal. She says she passed the promotion exam last week. He congratulates her and says she did it really fast, adding that he expected nothing less from her. She asks if he's making fun of her since he's already a sergeant, and then questions why he keeps talking to her so casually. He reminds her that he already told her she could speak casually with him too. She says fine, she'll do just that then. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun starts getting visions of a dungeon appearing nearby. He's annoyed that it has to happen now, especially with Yoon-seo around since she's pretty sharp. In his head, he talks to himself, saying he only took this vacation because his best employee tipped him off about a gate popping up soon. He excuses himself, saying he needs to use the bathroom, and heads out to the park where the gate is expected to appear. He looks around and spots his best employee waiting nearby. He gives him props for showing up right on cue after being assigned to work separately from Lee Bong-gu. They both throw each other a thumbs up, and Kim Min-jun hands him a ball of demonic energy. He wonders where Lee Bong-gu is, since he hasn't heard from him in a while. The gate starts to form, and Kim Min-jun watches it carefully. He's relieved that there aren't many people around thanks to the cold winter, but he still questions why the gate had to show up in a residential area with so many people living nearby. He tells himself that he needs to take care of this quickly, for the people's safety and for the sake of his promotion. Just as he's heading toward the gate, a monster begins to emerge. His phone buzzes with an emergency notification from the military about the dungeon appearance. Kim Min-jun thinks that if something comes out of there that he can't handle, he'll just have to stall it until the military arrives. He braces himself and gets ready for battle. A hanker emerges from the gate, but something about it feels off. Kim Min-jun notes that it seems to be alone for now and wonders how much demonic energy it has already absorbed. He eyes its blade arms and comments that they look dangerous, but they're useless if they can't reach him. He leaps backward to avoid the initial strike and gets ready to activate his demonic arrows. Before he can launch his ability, the hanker suddenly throws one of its blade arms at him like a projectile. To his surprise, the blade is attached to a chain. Kim Min-jun grabs the chain midair and mocks the creature, asking what kind of petty trick this is. But the hanker yanks the chain back, flinging Kim Min-jun high into the air. As he's airborne, the monster hurls its other blade, and Min-jun barely dodges it before countering with a solid punch to its face, knocking it to the ground. He looks back, thinking it's over, but the hanker gets up again with its jaw broken and ready to fight. Just then, someone calls out to him. It's Yunseo, running toward him with a road sign in her hands. He's stunned to see her there. The hanker throws its blade in her direction, but Kim Min-jun grabs the chain and redirects the attack. He demands to know what she's doing there. She fires back, angry that he left her alone in the middle of dinner, and even more furious that he's fighting without a weapon. She says she saw the emergency alert and came straight away. She throws the road sign to him, and Kim Min-jun catches it, channeling his demonic energy into it. With a powerful swing, he slams the sign into the hanker's head, killing it on the spot. As dust fills the air, he uses the moment to absorb the hanker's demonic energy. When the dust settles, Kim Min-jun walks over to Yunseo, and she's stunned that he took down a high-threat monster all on his own. Kim Min-jun tells her that a certain someone helped him, though he thinks to himself that the fight would have been even easier if she hadn't shown up. Meanwhile, Yunseo kneels down to inspect the hanker's body and notes that it's an irregular monster, pointing out the chains and blades attached to its arms. She stands up and says they need to have a serious talk, but that conversation will have to wait as 5 more hankers emerge from the gate. She quickly tells Kim Min-jun they need to regroup with reinforcements and plan an attack. He agrees and suggests she leave to bring the backup and then return to join him. Yunseo snaps at him, shouting that if he's really planning to fight all those monsters alone, he must be out of his mind. As the hankers let out a deafening roar, Kim Min-jun smiles confidently and says it's time to go. Charging toward the monsters, he tells himself it's time to earn that staff sergeant promotion. Meanwhile, deep in a forest, a cloaked figure steps out of the trees. She mutters a few words, and a secret underground passage opens up beside a large boulder. The figure descends into a massive stone hall, removes her hood, revealing herself to be a woman, and stands before a carving of Lumi Nuna. She quietly says for Lord Minold to wait, because she's coming for him. The story then shifts to a quiet island in the middle of the sea. 2 officers stand by as a helicopter descends from the sky. Out steps a massive burly man with a majestic beard, moving like he owns the place. He charismatically introduces himself as Major General Du from the Korean Hunters. The man waiting to receive him is Masaru from the Japanese Association. Without wasting time, Masaru leads him inside to go over the operation details. After reviewing the proposal, the Major General gives him a nod of approval. He admits that clearing the dungeon will be a massive undertaking. With a sharp look, he points out that Masaru would not have requested Korean assistance just because they were short on manpower. Picking up on that, Masaru decides to reveal the truth. The Japanese Association is directly controlled by the government, while independent guilds hold real influence over individual hunters. Their real problem is not a lack of numbers. What they lack are properly trained hunters with battlefield discipline. That is why Masaru wants to borrow the Korean training methods through a joint operation. Now it clicks for the Major General why he was specifically assigned to this mission. General Hakcheol clearly expects him to showcase the true might of the Korean forces. At that moment, Masaru brings up an exceptionally talented officer on the Korean team. Curious, he eagerly asks what kind of training allowed the young man to grow so quickly and build such a strong reputation in the community. The Major General suddenly starts sweating, unsure how to even begin explaining that story. Meanwhile, we cut back to our boy Min-jun. My guy is standing there calm as ever while a massive dokaibi looms over his head, ready to crush him flat. He casually cleans out his ear while his Japanese teammates, Ren and Ken, drop the beast to its knees within seconds. Even so, they struggle to cut through its thick hide. That is when a confident female voice cuts through the tension. The monster immediately charges at her, ready to squash her into the ground. But she is no damsel in distress. With precise swings, she slices it apart with the same ease she chops carrots in a kitchen. The samurai woman is Suzuki Mio from the Japanese Association. Ren and Ken are impressed, as always, by her overwhelming swordsmanship. Mio walks over to check if Minjun is alright. Noticing his spaced-out look, she bluntly tells him to stay in the back if he cannot handle a real fight. Her blunt comment annoys him, but her flawlessly fluent Korean makes fangirling on the inside. Major Hyundo from the Korean forces comments that this dokaibi is tiny compared to the ones they deal with back home. Another overly patriotic old captain, however, is furious at our boy for embarrassing their country in front of the Japanese. The man cannot stand that they were assigned a loser sergeant like him, but Major Hyundo calmly tells the captain to relax, pointing out that the kid simply lacks field experience. Meanwhile, Mio's harsh words keep echoing in the captain's ears. What the old captain does not realize is that our boy deliberately held back to gauge the Japanese forces' skill level. He did not expect much from them going in, but Ren, Ken, and especially Mio clearly exceeded those expectations. Just then, Mio senses something ominous approaching from deeper inside the cave. Her eyes widen the moment she realizes something dangerous is closing in, and she immediately shouts a warning. In the next second, she barely manages to deflect a throwing axe that shoots out from the darkness. Emerging slowly from the cave is a towering blue demon that looks creepier than Epstein. Mio raises her voice and announces that it is the dungeon boss. Ren and Ken stiffen at once, preparing for battle while our boy does not even blink. The tense samurai issues rapid orders, saying she has already called for backup and that they need to hold a defensive line until reinforcements arrive. But before she can even finish, the boss closes the distance in a flash. Ren and Ken rush forward with a coordinated strike to save her. The demon casually grabs them by the legs and flings them across the cavern like ragdolls. Seizing the brief opening, Mio swings her blade with full force, aiming to cleave the monster clean in half. To her disbelief, the creature's body is so durable that her sword fails to leave even a scratch. At that moment, Captain Sangduke steps forward, drawing his mana-infused blade. He boasts that his weapon is leagues above the third-rate equipment the average hunters receive, then charges in to display his so-called true strength. One perfectly timed kick to the face is all it takes to send him crashing straight into the wall. The boss then effortlessly reads Mio's follow-up strike and sidesteps her magic blade with ease. As she orders everyone to retreat immediately, she notices Minjun already moving, with Ren and Ken slung over his shoulders. She is stunned that he reacted before her command was even fully given, and she instinctively wishes him a safe withdrawal. Instead, he turns back toward her and calmly asks why retreat when they can just slay the boss. Her eyes widen at what sounds like a reckless plan. She yells at him to run while he still can, but he only gives a sly grin and releases his power, mogging the samurai at her own specialty. Even the boss hesitates, sensing the terrifying aura around him, as if questioning who the real monster in the room truly is. Realizing it cannot afford to mess around, the boss quickly reaches out to grab its weapon. Our boy just stands there smiling, straight up letting it swing at him on purpose. Right before it can chop him in half though, he smacks it with his blade and sends the giant straight into the ceiling. Minjun then gathers his magic into a concentrated beam, which completely shocks Mio. Not because of the power, but because the beam starts firing off in every direction and nearly hits her too. She scrambles to block the stray blasts with her katana. Meanwhile, the captain barely avoids getting his head blown off by one of the rogue beams. Minjun shamelessly throws out a sorry for the oopsie, and then focuses his aura properly this time. With that, he swings at the boss with everything he has. The strike tears clean through the demon's axe and even shatters his own sword from the sheer impact. The ugly blue goblin Freak cries after getting its fingers get completely wrecked. Mio just stares in awe at the man whose aura was so overwhelming that even a military-grade sword couldn't handle it. Glancing at the broken weapon in his hand, Minjun realizes he probably should not have gone all out like that. Still, he cracks out his whip, already thinking about the reward for taking down the boss. Switching back to his old squad, the boys look absolutely drained after another brutal day. They keep whining about how Minjun works them like unpaid interns. One staff sergeant straight up admits he is more scared of the monster who lives with them than any dungeon beast. Even after his promotion, Minjun still stays with the unit instead of moving to headquarters. Just then, they spot Dongjin still grinding away in the field. They ask the corporal why he is still working like a grunt after getting promoted, and when their lord and savior Minjun is coming back. Dongjin says he is not sure, but there was news that Minjun single-handedly cleared the raid just yesterday. Nobody knows how, but he apparently soloed the boss like it was nothing. The squad immediately realizes that means their nightmare supervisor will be back soon, but Dongjin adds that the flawless clear earned Minjun a full day off. That means he will not return for at least one more day. The guys absolutely lose it, wishing it was one whole year instead. Back in Japan, our boy is taking a relaxed stroll when Bongu pops up to report a new dungeon nearby. The little guy also demands to know who this Ping dude is, since he remembers his Lord Minjun blaming him for ruining his day before. When Bongu swears he will beat Ping up personally, Minjun gently informs him that not even his greatness can defeat Hai Ping. Suddenly, he asks Bongu to stop blabbing, because he hears a motorcycle racing in the distance. The rider dripped out in all black stops before him. He instantly facepalms when she takes off her helmet. Mio asks her what he is doing all the way out here in the middle of nowhere. He immediately throws the question back at her, wondering if she has become his personal stalker now. Mio calmly explains that her association patrols this entire area around the clock. A few years ago, it was destroyed because of a dungeon break, so now there are cameras everywhere to catch any stray monsters. Right on cue, Bongu casually flies straight in front of one. Minjun looks both pissed and disappointed at the same time, wondering how this idiot keeps fumbling so hard. Anyway, Mio repeats her question about why he is wandering around a restricted zone. With a face straighter than a JoJo character, he swears he just got lost. Hearing that only makes her more suspicious, but she lets it slide since she did not come here for him in the first place. Just then, a loud explosion goes off behind her. She turns around to see a massive minotaur smashing everything in sight. Our boy instantly realizes this is Bongu trying to cover up his earlier mistake. The samurai warns Minjun to get underground fast before the demonic energy corrupts his mind. Before she can even finish her sentence, he is already sprinting off at full speed. Mio frowns, finding it strange that the monster did not emerge from a gate and somehow never showed up on the cameras. Still, her top priority is taking it down before it causes serious damage. She lunges in with a powerful slash aimed at its neck. But right before her blade connects, the Minotaur pulls off a Dark Souls-style dodge and bolts in the opposite direction. Annoyed, the samurai gives chase without hesitation. Meanwhile, our boy reaches the entrance of an underground dungeon. On his way there, he peacefully disables every camera he passes, shooting them in the face with dark arrows. After that, he tears through the warning tape and descends into the tunnel thick with demonic energy. He actually grins as the dark aura seeps into him, boosting his power and even leveling up a few skills. Since Bongu found the place for him, he just hopes the little guy manages to escape Mio in one piece. Returning to Mio, the woman easily tracks the fleeing monster down. She thrusts her blade clean through a rock, nearly skewering the panicking guy on the spot. Just when he thinks he has shaken her off, she slices apart the entire wall like it is paper. In desperation, he transforms into a tiny kitty before she can properly see him, catching her completely off guard. Mio actually blushes at the sight of the small, harmless-looking cat and reaches out to pat its head. Loyal to his master, he slaps the thought's hand away and dashes off again without hesitation. Mio takes a second to process that rejection, clearly not used to getting curved by a cat. She then reports back to the association, saying she will continue tracking the monster until backup arrives. To her surprise, headquarters informs her that the underground corrupt energy in that sector has suddenly shifted. The color of the monster crystal always reacts to changes within a dungeon's core, so the science team starts wondering if the crystal changed color, because some corruption leaked out unexpectedly. When they ask Mio whether anything unusual happened on her end, she cannot recall a single thing. In that case, the scientists decide to log it as a temporary system bug. After all, corrupt energy does not just vanish into thin air without a trace. But at that exact moment, Mio gets a quiet suspicion that a certain someone might be involved. The scene then cuts back to base, where our sergeant is minding his own business like nothing happened. Suddenly, he spots a familiar figure walking toward him from a distance. She steps right into his personal space, so he casually ignores both her presence and her question about yesterday's stroll. Irritated, she bluntly asks if he knows anything about the destroyed underground entrance. She piles on another question, asking whether he happened to notice who wrecked all the cameras along the way. My guy answers a little too quickly that he did not see much during his peaceful walk. That response seems to satisfy her, and she turns to leave after wishing him a good day. But before walking off completely, she glances back and tells him they will definitely see each other again very soon. Later that night, our boy rushes back toward the restricted zone. His expression darkens when he sees the rough condition his most loyal subordinate was left in. Shifting back a few hours earlier, Minjun just finished absolutely folding his squad of incompetents in the training room. He flames them for getting rusty, asking those good-for-nothing slackers if they stopped training the second he left. Clearly annoyed, he makes it known that their current performance is downright embarrassing. When they drag themselves back to their feet, he shows zero mercy. He is already preparing to hand out another brutal round as punishment for being trash. But his plans suddenly change the moment he senses a bad omen. Leaving the boys to train on their own, he steps away on what he calls an emergency mission. Through telepathy, he demands Bongu explain whether he was the cause of the strange energy disturbance earlier. In response, he hears Bongu's weak voice barely saying his name. The guy mutters something about someone crossing between dimensions before passing out. After the radio silence, Minjun forces himself to calm down and locks onto his servant's faint energy signature. With that, he bolts toward it at full speed. If that message was right, it means someone just crossed over to Earth from Isgard. Meanwhile, deep inside a dark, ancient temple, a squad of buff warriors is chasing down a hooded figure. The nimble thief makes quick work of the smaller grunts without breaking a sweat. But then a massive warrior, clearly leagues above the rest, steps in. He slams her so hard she crashes through a heavy door and lands inside a massive ritual chamber. From the shadows, a woman's voice calls her out for the crime of stealing from the sacred temple. The priestess calmly offers her one chance to leave alive if she surrenders immediately. For a brief moment, the thief actually thinks she has run out of options. But when she realizes she landed right on top of an active magic circle, the tables have turned. She pulls out an artifact overflowing with dark demonic energy. Unimpressed, the priestess tells her there is nowhere near enough power in the temple to warp across dimensions, so her little escape plan will fail. She confidently adds that the thief does not even have the right coordinates. Unfortunately for her, the thief fires back that she already secured them, thanks to Bongu. The moment she hears that name, the blonde priestess orders her guards to stop the intruder at all costs. But the artifact detonates with explosive force, blasting the Spartan-looking warrior across the chamber. The thief flashes a cheeky grin and flips them off. That smug expression fades, however, when she notices the priestess grinning as well. At the exact same time, Bongu had been messing around with Minjun's tiny shadow companion. Out of nowhere, a dimensional rift tears open right where he is standing. That sudden shockwave is what tipped Minjun off in the training room that something was seriously wrong. Standing before him, Bongu recognizes the red-haired thief, but he collapses before he can properly report back to his master. A second later, the red-headed girl tumbles through as well and loses consciousness. Our boy arrives just in time to catch her before she hits the ground. With a faint smile, she calls him Lord Minold before passing out. One look at their battered condition is enough to make Minjun snap internally. He is pissed that Bongu got folded first, and now he somehow has a second useless servant to babysit. When he channels a portion of his demonic energy into them, the redhead slowly regains consciousness. Even though he looks 1 second away from popping a vein, she bursts into tears of joy the moment she sees him. She immediately slips out of his arms, drops to the floor, and begs forgiveness for forcing him to waste his precious energy on her. When she swears she will repay him with her life like always, he snaps at the fat idiot to at least try staying alive long enough to actually pay him back. After that, he demands an explanation from his subordinate Seo-yun, asking how the so-called strategist of the cult ended up the same as Bongu. Seo-yun bows deeply and apologizes over and over, saying she crossed dimensions for a reason. Hearing that, he realizes she must have seen something important. The redhead confirms it as a blue flare ignites in her right eye. That demonic eye is an ultra-rare artifact he personally gave her after she lost her original one serving under him. Its true value lies in its ability to imperfectly predict the future. With a heavy look on her face, she quietly reveals that her foresight showed her one thing: the demise of Earth. Our boy doesn't sound all that worried and asks if she is sure. She confirms that she doesn't know when it will happen, but she saw a destroyed Earth and Bongu by his side. That ticks him off that she used the tracking spell to come here all the way, just to tell him that she saw the end of Earth. Puffing like a kettle, he demands to know if she stole something from the Saintess to get here or something. Minjun's eyes then fall on the cross around her neck, and he figures that was indeed the case and calms down. He then asks what she saw in her visions. Seo-yun explains that she sensed a war due to hatred and anger, just like the one happening in Isgard right now. That makes his eyes go wide in shock, and he then starts letting loose, ranting that all his hard work there went to waste. Demanding to know who it was, she reveals that the Nova Empire is the culprit this time. The scene then shifts to the last day on Isgard before our boy returns to Earth in the Nova Empire. Countless bodies litter the floor as a cloaked figure stares down a juiced-up Frankenstein. An old guy behind the steroid zombie tells Minold not to get too cocky since he only defeated the beginner goons. The guy in front is the real threat here. That catches our boy's interest that the old guy knows his name, to which the man then reveals that he is a duke with good intel gatherers. The blondie then tries to aggro him, saying that it's a shame that he is being used as a slave by the Saintess, and gives him an offer. Without missing a beat, he shoots down the offer and tells the guy to make his move already. Clearly annoyed, the old man tries to make an offer again, but our boy shuts him up, saying that he didn't come here to chit-chat. Minjun tells him to save his yapping for these hands. Acting overconfident, the old man calls it a shame and sicks the juiced-up Frankenstein on him. Our boy doesn't even flinch and simply readies his hands as he powers up all his skills and replies that it is a shame indeed. A while later, he starts making his way back, with a sack over his shoulder. In the hallway, he notices a lone figure standing and asks why the big man came down here by himself. He wonders if the Archmage Isaac has some special business with him. The old man informs him that the castle is about to be taken over and asks if he needs some medical attention. Our boy brushes the idea aside, so the Archmage instead asks about the Duke, who turns out to be still alive. He then asks about the steroid zombies the Duke made, to which our boy replies that they were simply trash to the core. Getting serious, Archmage Isaac states that this is Nova's secret lab with illegal research over monsters that should never reach the light of day. Minjun just walks on by saying that he never intended to babble about it and takes his leave. The old man stops him and asks him one final question, asking what he thinks about the Saintess. That makes our boy break character as he gets a big smile on his face and reveals that he doesn't trust the witch one bit. Coming back to reality, He concludes his story that Nova's emperor was unalived by the hero, so there shouldn't be any of those created zombies. He then demands to know how they are back while his subordinates just sit there, listening to his rants. Forcing himself to calm down, he asks about his followers, but Seoyeon just stays silent. Understanding the situation, he states that he cannot do much from here. Bonggu then speaks up, claiming that Master personally trained those people so they should be fine. The redhead grits her teeth as she forces herself to agree with the shapeshifter despite how much she hates him. The system then pops up informing our boy that when he uses demonic power on his loyal followers, a part will flow back to him. That catches him off guard that this kind of party buff is useless. However, after looking at their cute wide-eyed faces, he tells himself that someone has to look after them. Getting up, he declares that the prophecy won't stop him, as he will simply level up to become strong enough to set everything in place. His followers start hyping him up too, and he then thinks of the next step of the plan. A couple of days later, our boy puts forth a huge tower of cash, making Seoyeon interested. Bonga starts salivating and reaching for the money only for the redhead to smack his bird brain. She then tells her master that this much isn't necessary, however he reassures her that it is, and he can get the cash back very quickly. Minjun states that he couldn't give them a good life back in Isgard, but he can make sure that they live comfortably here, which makes the two emotional. The shapeshifter then says that he will work hard to get his identity card, to which our boy tells him not to get scammed. Watching the subordinate's passionate responses, the girl gets ticked off and clamps his beak shut. Meanwhile, our boy wonders that the people who try to scam them would never survive in the first place. The redhead then pulls him out of his thoughts, saying that after getting her card she wishes to join the Hunter Corps. The scene then shifts to a bus that is passing through the mountains. Our boy thinks about what Seoyeon said and figures that she can become a hunter after getting her card made illegally. However, he is completely stumped as to why she wants to become one in the first place. Soon after, he starts sweating hard as he recalls that since she grew up in Isgard, she might slip up and cause trouble for him here. Minjun starts biting his nails as he thinks that she is worse than Bonggu in comparison. He starts brainstorming excuses that may make her change her mind, but then recalls that the Hunter Corps has a course for recruits, so they become naturalized to the rules. In the end, he decides to let the matter go and tells himself that things will work themselves out somehow. Sometime later, he walks through the forest area when he notices his Nightwalker suddenly jump onto his shoulder. Our boy asks if it also knows that the strange presence is around here, and starts salivating over the opponents he might come across. As he turns around the corner, he notices that people have already gathered in the distance. By their clothes, it does not look like they are from the Hunter Corps. Just then, the group notices him as he approaches them. The big burly man in army clothes then walks up and starts staring him down. Minjun gets confused about what is happening, but then the guy speaks up and asks what he is doing here. Looking around, he makes an excuse that he is here to investigate a malfunctioning dungeon. The guy counters that an investigation was already done and introduces the group as Raid, which is a civilian hunter company. The macho man then says that they have official permission for this dungeon and even offers to show a permit. Our boy raises his hand in surrender and says that he is not here to cause problems. The leader then presses forward and asks what an officer is doing here alone on a weekend. Our boy recalls that the Hunter Corps handles nearly all the dungeons here in Korea. He figures that the big guy is afraid that this opportunity might get snatched away from him. Although he sympathizes with their feelings, he still wants to get into this dungeon too and starts smiling like crazy. Regaining his composure, he announces that he will not interfere with their raid. However, this extra investigation is necessary. Putting his hand up, our boy tells them that he only needs 5 minutes in there. The big man and the others remain suspicious of him. Minjun reassures them that he only needs to take a quick look and will not take any loot. Seeing no other option, the leader turns around and says that he will discuss this with his teammates. A few minutes later, the group discusses that since there is no profit to divide, everything should be fine. The masked man speaks up and says that our boy is traveling empty-handed, and that they should discuss this with the Hunter Corps first. The leader shuts the idea down quickly and reminds them that they do not meet the minimum 10-man requirement, so things will only get worse. The group keeps bickering while our boy wonders how much longer this is going to take. Just then, another voice speaks up and says to just go along with the plan. The hot blonde girl says that there should not be any problems, and the guys instantly start sucking up to her. Meanwhile, our boy nearly falls asleep from boredom while the girl looks at him like candy. Seeing that the matter is settled, Minjun then starts moving toward the portal, only for the girl to call him by name, which makes him stop. She then reveals that she is a huge fan of his work, but he does not give her even an ounce of attention. Finally, the leader starts his timer and says that they will enter in 5 minutes as discussed, while our boy simply answers yes in agreement. Just before entering, he calls out that he will annihilate anything that interferes with his investigation. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Corps building, the Special Task Force commander sweats nervously. At the same time, the Hunter Corps commander reviews a file and confirms with Major General Song if he truly can do nothing about the situation. He speaks up and says that he will try to contact them again, but then General Hakshiol slams the file down and asks what the problem is. Narrowing his eyes, he asks if Major General Du is the concern here. Song answers that the other Major General is against it, but so is the target himself. The general then relaxes and says that nothing can be done about this for now. The bearded man hurriedly states that he will try again, and even fight if he has to, but the general shuts him up and tells him to leave. Walking out of the room, Major General Song holds his head in frustration, but then notices his phone ringing. Realizing that it is his daughter, his mood completely changes and he asks what she wants. Just as his mood drops because of the scolding he received earlier, she says something that makes him instantly light up and he demands to know more. The blondie tells her old man that she just met Minjun. The scene then shifts to the dungeon, where a giant lizard crawls around like it owns the place. All of a sudden, it notices something and gets alert as it stares down into the darkness. The monster gets ready to attack only for our boy to barrel right past it and launch it away. The other lizards over there meet the same fate as he continues to race forward toward his target. Minjun feels a very weak, almost unnoticeable demonic energy coming from the dungeon, and figures that that is the reason why civilian hunters were allowed here in the first place. He tells himself that if it were not for him sensing the demonic energy, the other hunters would have been done for. Just then, more lizards launch a surprise attack on him, only for him to dodge through them like a pro acrobat. Running away, he tells the lizards that he does not have time for small fry. Watching him go, the monsters wonder who the hell this crazy man is. Our boy then notices that the energy is close by and skids to a stop. Looking around, he cannot find a way in, but then he raises his leg high. Charging up a kick, he smashes through the wall and enters a secret room. He walks in like he owns the place, and the mega lizard wakes up from its nap. Minjun only seems mildly interested in the monster, and claims with a smile that the monster got in his way first. A few minutes later, the fight is underway with our boy effortlessly dodging all the monster's strikes. After having had enough, he stops the tail attack with just one hand and announces that he learned a new skill recently. Pointing his finger up, purple clouds start forming in the sky as the corruption rain skill gets activated. He then suddenly drops his finger down and the poison rain falls. Sensing the danger, the giant lizard immediately jumps away, but not before some of the raindrops fall on its tail and form blisters. The monster screams in pain while our boy seems more concerned that the attack was not as powerful as he expected. His eyes then widen as he notices the giant lizard shedding its tail and immediately rushing toward him. Minjun manages to dodge the initial strike and mocks it for suddenly becoming more agile after losing the tail. He suddenly stops as he notices that something is off. The monster's tail starts to reform and slams into him. Blocking the attack, our boy looks up only to see a giant blob of venom heading his way. The venom coats his entire upper body and forces him to step back. Seeing its attacker now defenseless, the giant lizard steps forward as it becomes determined to chomp him up. Just as its nasty slimy tongue slithers out, our boy drops the act and grabs onto it, which catches the monster off guard. A dark aura begins to leak out as he announces that this weak venom is like candy to an advanced dark mage like him. Summoning giant hands that keep the monster's jaw open, he summons the corruption rain skill again, and menacingly asks how the inside of its body will react to his attack. The giant lizard realizes that it bit off more than it could chew, but it is too late as the attack explodes through its body. Now shirtless, Minjun watches the monster's body fall to the ground and smiles as the demonic energy flows into him. The system then gives him exciting news that he has also acquired the skill Vicious Charge. The skill allows him to act like a battering ram, which other dark mages usually ignore, but not him. Dismissing the system, he then focuses on clearing up the mess he left behind by using his corruption skill. All traces of the monster disappear, and with that, he turns to the opening he made. Walking out, he wonders if it has been 5 minutes so far. On the outside, the party is still waiting, and the masked guy asks if it is time yet. The leader confirms that it is, but then asks if the others can feel that something is not right. The macho guy continues and says that no investigation gets done in 5 minutes. He then wonders if the dungeon is actually very dangerous, and if our boy has been sent to the afterlife. The others start wondering why their luck is so trash. The leader then says to just set up camp here instead, since they should not get involved with the investigation. The others get confused, but he explains that there might be trouble if the guy actually dies in there. Just then, the blonde speaks up and says that it will not happen. That catches everyone off guard. The leader asks if she actually knows the guy since she said she was a fan. She answers that our boy is the one who cleared the fake dungeon. Everyone gets surprised, but the masked man states that it was a regular sergeant from the 104th Division who cleared the dungeon. He then asks how the girl knows that it is him, even though the Hunter Corps never reveal personal identity. She dodges the question and says that she has her methods and that they should prepare to go in already. The macho guy suddenly stands up and voices his concerns as he asks, "What if the dungeon is extremely dangerous?" Ji-yoon just sighs and asks if the big oaf truly believes that what our boy said is true and claims that she does not. Walking toward the portal, she says that they upheld the 5-minute agreement and that she wants to go in now. What she actually wants is to get some dirt on Minjun, but just then, the blue-haired girl points something out. The squad gets alerted as someone steps out of the portal. Still shirtless, our boy catwalks his way toward them while posing like a movie star. The girls instantly start blushing while the leader asks what the hell happened in there. Our boy gives the green light to go ahead. Before they can leave, however, he asks to borrow a shirt. Back in his apartment, Seoyeon sits at the laptop, typing away with intense focus. Right on cue, Bonggu walks in carrying a bag stuffed with ramen and random snacks. With a pissy attitude, she immediately demands to know where exactly he disappeared to without saying a single word. When he bluntly replies that he just went to the store because they were out of noodles, she twitches. Cheerful as ever, he offers to cook some for her too. But the hormonal barbarian drives her fist straight into his weak ribcage. She scolds him for wasting time at convenience stores instead of training and getting stronger. Confused and hurt, Bonggu argues that communication usually starts with moving your lips, not fists. She snaps back that he has no right to waste the dark energy their master used to save them on snacks and flying around the city. She goes as far as saying she would rather have died than accept that energy if it came with a penalty for Lord Minold. Bonggu quickly swears he will help fix everything in no time using his scouting abilities. Grabbing him by the collar, she reminds him that dark energy does not simply refill. It is already scarce in this world, and even what little exists is painfully limited. Bonggu insists he trusts their master and believes saving them is also a part of his big plan. Watching his stupidly innocent expression finally makes her snap. She throws another punch, but this time Bonggu refuses to tank it. Just then, their sergeant walks in and finds the two of them brawling like children. Without reacting much, he calmly asks whether things are proceeding according to plan. Seoyeon reports that Bonggu will meet the black market trader in a few days. Minjun reminds her to keep a close eye on him since reliability is not exactly his strong suit. Bonggu does himself zero favors, munching on snacks like a starved panda. Anyway, he asks Seoyeon if she is truly serious about joining the Korean hunters alongside him. The girl proudly declares she has studied all his Korean textbooks thoroughly and is ready to enlist at any time. Just then, a Discord notification pings and she absolutely loses it. Our boy watches in mild shock and strange admiration as the keyboard warrior unleashes her flawless Korean. Apparently, she has been fiercely defending his reputation online as Kim Minjun Fan 69. That aside, he orders Bonggu to hold down the fort without causing a single incident. While Minjun is not heading out on a special mission, he has been assigned to a 5-minute standby. That means he and his squad must remain on duty for 24 hours straight, ready to respond to any orders in their designated sector. Normally, this is a mock exercise for soldiers in the military, but when hunters get involved, it usually means things are going to get ugly. The next day, he briefs his squad, who secretly hope it is just another training drill. The boys are not exactly thrilled about the standby either. They all know it feels like playing endless hell mode, where emergency calls keep dropping non-stop for a solid 24 hours. With his squad packed in the back of the Jeep, our boy slams the gas pedal and heads out to begin the 5-minute standby. Still, something about this feels off to him. It does not take long for that feeling to prove correct when he spots a blockade right at the starting route. His eyes narrow at the sight of a chiseled Major Louis Armstrong cosplayer standing there with a confident grin. Suddenly, the memory clicks. This is the same guy who once acted all tough, until a solid whipping humbled him real quick. He steps out of the Jeep, and the massive officer greets him with fake excitement. The man apologizes dramatically, saying he needs to borrow the Jeep since his own car conveniently broke down. Unfazed, our sergeant checks his watch for the time limit to reach the checkpoint. The smug general grins wider, clearly thinking Minjun will fail without a car. To his shock, our boy calmly orders his squad to move out immediately. If they don't have a car, they will use their legs. Annoyed beyond belief, the squad follows behind while the general grinds his teeth at Minjun's unshakable composure. A few minutes later, they reach the checkpoint completely exhausted, arriving with barely 4 minutes to spare. Waiting there is Major General Song Bayomgi, and judging by his expression, he has an even bigger surprise prepared. Minjun orders his team to stand at attention and salute. All the while, his eyes remain locked on the Special Task Force badge pinned to Major General Song's uniform. In that instant, he understands exactly what this darn task force is planning. You see, before Minjun even reached the checkpoint, the Major General had already noticed that Colonel Lee was not entirely pleased with the setup. The General tells him to stop being so stiff, saying this is simply how he handles things. Colonel Lee politely replies that he is not unhappy at all. Rather, he feels honored that the great commander personally visited such a small and insignificant unit. Colonel Lee understands that his current rank may not be enough to properly command a hunter unit like Minjun's. Still, he finds it like overkill that headquarters dispatched senior officers such as Special Task Force hunters to discipline them for this drill. Not to mention, the chief commander himself showed up just to observe what was supposed to be a simple training drill. The scene shifts back to the squad before they headed out earlier that day. They already suspected the 5-minute standby had something to do with Minjun. One of them mutters that it is probably fallout from his earlier clash with that task force sergeant. Hearing that, our boy makes it clear that this is exactly why they need to shove a win in their faces. The The squad instantly gets fired up, convinced this is nothing compared to Sergeant Minjun's demonic training sessions. Later, during their uphill sprint toward the checkpoint, the squad pushes through the mountain trail. Corporal Lee radios in that there is nothing unusual to report so far. Some of the men quietly worry about potential hostiles in the area, but the corporal reassures them the route has been abandoned for years. That reassurance briefly restores everyone's hope that this is just another routine drill. But that hope shatters the moment they spot a suspicious outpost ahead. When two men who clearly look like professional killers step into view, the squad immediately raises their weapons. Minjun contacts headquarters and receives direct orders to capture them alive. As the two professionals approach confidently, Minjun calmly orders them to drop their guns. This is his squad, and his squad handles enemies the old-fashioned way, with their bare hands. The blonde man effortlessly deflects one soldier's strike and blocks a surprise attack from another without breaking form. Meanwhile, the silver-haired guy goes full star platinum on a different subordinate, overwhelming him in seconds. Minjun quickly realizes he has to step in if he does not want his men getting folded. Our sergeant moves toward the silver-haired fighter first. The guy throws punches so fast his fists blur in the air, but Minjun turns the swagger up to max, weaving through them like it is light work. He kicks the man in the knee to break his balance, and then slams him into the ground so hard the impact cracks the earth beneath them. After that, he glances at his stunned subordinates and tells them to finish the job. The greedy little masochists happily jump in, beating the poor guy while he is already down bad. With that handled, Minjun shifts his focus to the roided-up wrestler who has been tossing his men around. The massive dude steps forward, towering over him in a clear attempt to assert dominance. Our sergeant casually suggests they play a game of one touch. He even generously allows Arnold Schwarzenegger to land the first hit. The big man swings with full force, only to freeze when the scrawny-looking sergeant does not even flinch. Shrugging it off, the wrestler flexes his chest next, convinced those steel abs make him untouchable. Famous last move? The second Minjun's fist connects. The man's soul practically leaves his body. Without missing a beat, Minjun orders his squad to dogpile him too. Desperate, the buff guy calls for a timeout and yells that he is actually a task force agent, and this is just part of training. Unfortunately for him, Minjun's demons do not process excuses, and they beat him until he is crying for his mom. Back in the present at the checkpoint, Colonel Lee is riled up over the commander's shady setup. He warns that he will file an official complaint if this stunt causes a serious rift between the military and the special task force. The commander tells him to calm down before he does something he regrets. The rising tension snaps when someone knocks on the door. A soldier steps in and reports that the 5-minute standby squad has arrived. When the colonel anxiously asks whether there are any injuries, the soldier states that 2 individuals were severely hurt. The colonel nearly has a heart attack, until the soldier clarifies that the 2 suspicious hostiles are currently in a coma. The standby squad, on the other hand, is perfectly fine. Hearing that, Colonel Lee is genuinely confused about how that is even possible. The soldier, barely containing his excitement, reports that their unit suffered only minor scratches and successfully captured the 2 sussy Baka agents. Colonel Lee turns toward the task force commander with a cheeky grin. The man looks like he is about to have a stroke, realizing his grand scheme just got completely outplayed by Minjun. Hunter Han Borum and the other special agent are in terrible condition. The commander grinds his teeth in frustration before dismissing everyone except our boy from the room. Once they are alone, he advances toward him like an angry bull trying to intimidate him. Minjun doesn't even blink. Seeing how calm he remains under this pressure, the commander suddenly bursts out laughing in surprise. He cannot wrap his head around the fact that someone this capable is still just a sergeant, and openly calls his superiors idiots. Grabbing Minjun by the shoulder, he bluntly invites him over to the special task force, and even offers a massive promotion on the spot. Minjun looks completely unimpressed, so the commander sweetens the deal, saying he will accept any condition Minjun names. That line instantly triggers some devious ideas in our boy's head, and the two dive into a long, detailed negotiation behind closed doors. Outside, one of Colonel Lee's subordinates nervously wonders if that scheming bastard is about to steal their sergeant away, but Colonel Lee does not look worried in the slightest. He firmly believes Minjun is a man with principles who does not bend easily under pressure. Right then, the commander's furious shouting and cursing echo from inside the office. Lee bursts out laughing, knowing exactly how this was going to play out. Still, he quietly hopes Minjun does not end up in serious trouble for offending the task force chief. Inside the office, the commander demands to know why the hell Minjun needs guaranteed on-duty gaming hours and something called dungeon power time. Our boy calmly explains that he refuses to live under internet bans and ridiculous electronics restrictions. On top of that, he states with a straight face that Dungeon Power Fighter is a top-tier game that deserves dedication. The commander fumes, saying his level of disobedience as a soldier is unbelievable. He finds it absolutely diabolical that Minjun is spouting this nonsense in front of a 5-star commander. The man questions whether the 5-minute standby stunt taught him anything about hierarchy and power. As a 5-star commander, he can easily make life miserable for both him and his squad. But when he notices Minjun does not flinch even at that threat, the commander switches tactics and decides to approach this from a strictly legal angle instead. He reminds Minjun about the time he illegally used his sergeant status to illegally take part in a civilian hunter company raid. The commander threatens to reopen the case, launch a formal inspection, and pursue legal action if necessary. But that momentum dies instantly when the office door swings open and Major General Du storms inside. He declares he personally authorized Minjun's participation. The Major General coldly states that it is pretty bold of the commander to try taking advantage of his brief absence. He throws a thick bundle of files, casually dropping that he also happens to possess some very shady information on him. Seeing the task force commander freeze in visible shock, our boy cannot help but enjoy the karma. He quickly pieces it together and realizes this entire backup plan traces back to Song Ji-yoon, who recognized him during that so-called dungeon raid inspection. The self-proclaimed superfan had apparently planned to use the raid incident as leverage from the very beginning. All of it was part of her plan to recruit him into the task force. Going back to the first day of his mission, all of his squad members are nearly collapsing from fatigue. He opens the door and silently observes the scene. Dongjin snaps out of his drowsy state and asks if they will start mobilizing soon. Minjun tells him to take it easy for the day, to which the squad mate asks him to rest too. Our boy tells him not to worry about it and to be prepared for tomorrow. Watching the door close, Dongjin starts to get scared since this was just their first day here. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Minjun starts talking to himself that he's going to take care of all the pests tonight and telepathically orders Bonggu to start. Standing outside the raid building, the shapeshifter and Nightwalker answer in the affirmative and prepare for their entry. Inside the building, Ji-yoon is busy working on her computer, but then she notices that something is not right. Walking around the floor, she spots a cleaner sweeping in the corner. The blonde gets suspicious and asks what the cleaner is doing here at this time. The man stops sweeping and claims that he got the time schedule mixed up and promises to be done soon. That only makes her more suspicious, so she then asks the guy to show his face and identity card. The man doesn't move from his spot, in response to which she starts activating her powers and repeats what she said. The cleaner then turns around and asks her to be patient. She warns him not to move a single step, but her words die in her throat as she notices the absolute specimen standing in front of her. Bonggu hits her with his dashing killer smile and calmly asks her not to raise her voice. Completely love-struck, Ji-yoon's brain short-circuits as she just stands there in shock. Bonggu then shakes his head, saying that he doesn't have his card since this is his first day here. Meanwhile, he activates his seduction skill, which makes the blonde fall right into the trap. All of a sudden she gets serious, finding it unbelievable that a worker doesn't have his card on his first day. However, she then unclips her own card and offers it to him, saying that must have been a real bother. Ji-yoon tells him to use the card and return it to her tomorrow. Bonggu takes the card and immediately tosses it into his cart. The Nightwalker grabs it and runs off immediately, all while the blonde is still trying to hit on him. Bonggu takes her up on her generosity and asks her for one last favor. Still smiling like an angel, he passes the mop to her and tells her to get to mopping. While Ji-yoon is busy cleaning up for the first time in her life, the elevator dings as Seo-yeon enters the floor with the key card. Spotting the locked office, she swipes the card on the reader and sneaks inside. Our boy sends her a telepathic message to look into the blonde, as he is sure she is linked to the Hunter Special Task Force in some way. The redhead spots an open computer and gets to work as she swears to herself that she will find the evidence. A short while later, her eyes widen, then she smirks as she finally spots something. Our boy gets a devious smile of his own as he tells her to copy all the data and send it to the address he will give her. Coming back to the present, Song starts shaking with rage as he wonders where the hell Du got this from. He tries to act innocent and asks what the document is. Du starts roasting him, asking if the big man cannot take responsibility for his actions. He continues that there has been an anonymous report stating that official Hunter Corps data has been shared with a civilian hunter company. Along with that, there was some personal stuff that was shared that wasn't in the database. Major General Song already knows all of this and silently wonders what the hell his daughter did. Just then, Major General Du mentions Ji-yoon, and also that she is hiding as a headhunting job holder, even though she could be a leader in raid. He continues that he knows the girl used the stolen data to contact hunters with potential and recruited them. Du then asks again if the guy is sure that he has no idea about any of this. Throwing the paper down, Song grips the guy's shoulders and demands to know if there is actual evidence for all these allegations. Major General Du easily pulls his hand away and warns him to lower his voice since the walls have ears. Pulling his hand back, Song stares daggers at our boy, who doesn't show even the slightest bit of emotion. The Major General then pushes past him and says that he will be taking his leave now. He says that the Special Task Force will look into this matter, which makes our boy deadpan that the guy will look into his own corruption. Before the man leaves, Du asks if this matter doesn't involve General Hakshiel. Song stares back at Major General Du and reminds him that the walls have ears, then slams the door shut. Minjun gets confused as he is the only one listening there, but then Major General Do bursts into laughter at the entire incident. Our boy then shouts out that he didn't hear any of the conversation. The Major General reveals that Minjun's info was also in those files and his dungeon raid data. He then says that things are looking very shady right now, but he won't pry further into the matter. Our boy thanks his superior for his kindness, but then the Major General stops him. He recalls all of Minjun's exploits as well as the Special Task Force's obsession over him and the report. Turning his head around, he asks our boy if there is something that he should be aware of. Our hero tells him that he will let the big guy know once the time is right and asks him to cooperate. Major General Do just grins and says that he is looking forward to that day. Meanwhile, at the 104th Division, Colonel Yu is at her desk sorting through documents. Someone then knocks on the door, to which she gives the order to come in. It turns out to be none other than Yunseo. A few moments later, the two are having a small tea party. Colonel Yu congratulates her on getting such a fast promotion, which makes the blue-haired girl flustered. Recalling Minjun's record, Yunseo feels a little dejected, but the colonel reassures her that the guy is an anomaly. The woman then reveals that she heard the Special Task Force contacted Yunseo, to which the girl answers yes. The colonel realizes that they wanted to recruit the blue-haired girl, but then asks what she thinks of the idea. Yunseo smiles and says that she turned down the offer with zero hesitation, which catches the colonel by surprise. Yu then smiles and says that she is relieved to hear that. However, the colonel then presses further, recalling that the blue-haired girl first turned down her own father's division, and then the Special Task Force. After staying silent for a few moments, Yunseo reveals that she has a very talented friend who is far above her in skill. However, she has a dream that she will surpass him one day, and that guy is working in this place. Colonel Yu smiles and states that she is cheering for the girl. After that, the older woman brings up vacations and asks if she has any plans. Yunseo answers that she is looking forward to spending them with her group members. The scene then shifts to the girl squad with shocked looks on their faces as they come face to face with Minjun's squad. Yunseo then asks what they are doing here, but our boy has the same question in mind and is annoyed that they even picked the same days. Just then, a voice calls out to them, making our boy freeze up. The man calmly asks what they are all doing here while the veins in his arm are about to burst from holding the suitcase too tightly. Major General Taeho then demands to know what the hell is going on here. Sometime later, Minjun's squad settles into their room. Kim is over the moon that he got to meet the 4th Battalion, and Hanyoung is also excited that they got 7 days of vacation. On top of that, they got passes for the resort that are usually limited to higher-ups, and the 4th Battalion being here makes it the icing on top. Just then, the guys get alert as a drained Minjun makes his way back. Dongjin asks what happened with the Major General. Our boy simply flops down on his bed and explains that the old man was accusing him of stalking his daughter all the way here. He then starts ranting that he knew coming here was a mistake all along. Dongjin tries to reassure him that the Major General simply had a misunderstanding, and at least he left them alone for now. The two in the background bicker that despite being busy, the Major Commander somehow always makes time for the 4th Battalion girls. The brown-haired guy then tries to cheer him up by saying that they should at least enjoy the beach. Just then, the two troublemakers spring into action as they agree with those words while somehow managing to instantly change into suits. Minjun has had enough as he rushes toward them and slams the two straight into the ground. He warns them that they should get changed if they don't want the Major General to destroy them. At that moment, Sergeant Seung-ho puts a hand on his shoulder and gives him a thumbs up. Our hero figures that he is in high spirits too. Looking at his reflection, our boy smiles and realizes that they are all right. Some moments later, the entire squad gets ready for some beach action. The 4th Battalion also shows up, dressed up to impress. The two groups start their beach time with a good old-fashioned game of volleyball. Meanwhile, our boy runs away from the overly excited pink-haired girl who desperately wants to rub sunscreen all over him. The boys decide to test their balance on one leg in the water, which makes our hero confused. However, the two troublemakers don't let the opportunity pass as they scoop him up and rush him toward the ocean. That ticks Minjun off, who flicks Kim into the air and puts Hanyoung in a headlock. Watching the entire scene, the two squads burst into laughter, especially Unseo. Sometime later, the entire lot sits down on the shoreline and watches the waves come in. Seeing the girls bring in refreshments, Kim comments that the beach is indeed extremely nice. The scene then shifts to a boy who is picking up a ball from the sand. Just then, he notices something in the distance. His mom reminds him not to go too far into the sea, but the boy then asks her what that thing is in the distance. The woman also gets confused and wonders if it is smoke. Meanwhile, at the mysterious rock formation, large predatory fish can be seen circling in the water. Coming back to the group, the pink-haired girl calls out to her friend Hyeju to take a look at the Lumi keychain. She recalls that our boy received it back then at that carnival, and tells herself that he was holding on to their precious memories. The black-haired girl knows that is not the case but remains silent. They then get disturbed by a commotion, as Kim and Hanyoung egg Minjun on for losing rock, paper, scissors. Throwing the rock symbol in his face, they demand that our boy hold up the bet and buy them ice cream. However, he doesn't let that slide, as he crushes both their rocks with his scissors, defying the rules of the universe. Meanwhile, the girls laugh in the background. Kim doesn't let the matter go and grabs Minjun's backpack, pulling on the keychain. Our boy gets irritated and says that his wallet isn't in there as he pulls on the straps. However, the keychain tears apart, which makes everyone go silent. Seeing that his doom is close by, Kim hands the broken Lumi keychain to Mari, and the two troublemakers immediately make a run for it. Han-young calls out that he didn't do anything, but when he sees the murderous look in Minjun's eyes, he shuts up and keeps running. Seeing no other option, the two immediately jump into the water like pro swimmers, figuring that they will die if they get caught. Back on the beach, our boy is fuming while the pink-haired girl still fangirls over him, saying that our boy loves collecting memories. Sometime later, the two troublemakers manage to make it all the way near the smoking rock formations and catch their breath. Han-young blames Kim for dragging him into this, but the guy starts throwing a tantrum, claiming it was an accident. The ponytail guy tells him that he has no choice but to go back and apologize for what he did. Just then, Han-young notices something in the water, which scares Kim even more. He claims that he felt something warm pass near his legs. All of a sudden, the fish monster starts to rush toward them, and the two look around in confusion. The fish monster then jumps out of the water, determined to get a nibble which catches the two by surprise. Coming back to the beach, Sergeant Sung-ho builds a majestic sandcastle, like he took art classes from Picasso. Dongjin walks up to him and asks if he has seen the two troublemakers. The sergeant thinks for a bit, and recalls that they were making an ice cream bet with our boy. Out of nowhere, people start gathering near the ocean which catches their attention. Kim and Han-young make their way out of the water covered in giant monster bites. The two immediately rush toward their injured teammates. Looking at their wounds, the sergeant commands Dongjin to take Han-young to the infirmary right now. He then asks Kim what the hell happened back there. Before the guy can respond, he notices that our boy has managed to close in on them and immediately starts apologizing for the keychain. However, Minjun then notices the bite marks, and Kim reveals that they were attacked by scarlet anglerfish monsters. The 4th Battalion girls also make their way toward them and get shocked by the news. Yunseo recalls that they appeared in Samcheok's dungeon and might have come from there. Kim then says that they saw 2 of them, but apologizes that they were caught off guard and couldn't kill any of them. Seeing the man apologize like that, Yunseo starts consoling him while our boy orders Sergeant Sung-ho to take Kim to the medic. He then tells Unseo and the buff blonde girl to report the situation to the superiors and start evacuating the people. Before she can argue, our boy asks her for details about the fish monsters. Unseo answers that they got their name from their red color and the hanging lanterns on their foreheads. The fish can generate high heat and are extremely aggressive. Minjun confirms that it is all true and reveals that because of their violent nature, they don't fight in groups and even eat their own. This is why it is extremely strange for the 2 fish to be so far out here and hunt people together. Our boy says that he will go investigate the issue. However, the blue-haired girl stops him, saying that it is too risky. Minjun reminds her that time is of the essence and besides, he can do better on his own. He quickly adds that this is the case for now at least, and asks her to work together with him. He finishes by saying there is no time to waste, and the 3 sergeants immediately spring into action. With that, our boy rushes toward the water at full speed. While the others carry out their duties, he starts thinking that the only reason 2 of these fish monsters would work together is to breed thousands more like them. The girls rush back inside to alert the security team about the situation. Yunseo quickly reports that the resort is under attack, and Sergeant Kim Minjun is doing everything he can to hold the threat back. Even with his overwhelming strength, our hero would struggle to defeat the anglerfish and their eggs. You see, the eggs contain a massive amount of heat which is released when they hatch. If too many of them hatch in one location, the resulting blast could reach nuclear-level destruction and wipe the entire resort off the map. Minjun knows this better than anyone because anglerfish eggs were used as nature's time bombs back in Isgard. Personally, he would not mind dropping a bomb on the nest to erase it from existence. The problem is that the explosion would also level the resort along with it. Instead, he tracks the source of the warmest water in the area. The moment he dives beneath the surface, his suspicion of the anglerfish breeding is confirmed. Unfortunately, his corruption-based skills are nearly useless underwater. Somehow, water turns out to be the greatest weakness of a dark mage. To make matters worse, the anglerfish move far faster than him in their natural habitat. Still, our hero grins confidently because there is no enemy he cannot outplay. He charges straight toward a pair of them, intending to bait them into attacking so he can counter. Just as they close in, something sharp whizzes past his head like a fired bullet. His eyes widen in shock as he tries to process what just happened. In that instant, he discovers that scarlet anglerfish hide harpoon-like teeth deep inside their throats. The bony projectiles slam against his rock-hard muscles. Constantly dodging the barrage drains his stamina fast, leaving him desperate for air. With one final push, he kicks upward with all his strength and finally breaks through to the surface. He lets out every curse in the dictionary, venting his frustration at the overgrown Magikarps. But his anger quickly turns into confusion when he spots Bongu casually walking on the nest. His loyal servant explains that he could not just stay home while his master was clearly in danger. Still catching his breath, Minjun asks what exactly gave him the idea that he was in trouble. Grinning from ear to ear, Bonggu confirms that the annoying Ginger predicted it with her foresight. Just then, Seoyeon leaps in from the shore with a spear in hand, and Bonggu confidently tells Minjun to leave the rest to them. Hearing that, our sergeant does not argue at all because Bonggu is Isgard's undisputed #1 fish slayer. The shapeshifter cleverly transforms into a scarlet squid, the anglerfish's favorite prey, luring them in before finishing them off without mercy. Minjun climbs onto the rocky nest and wonders what exactly Seoyeon saw that made her rush to his side so urgently. A single glance at the overwhelming number of eggs packed inside the nest makes it obvious. Staying a few minutes longer, he will be vaporized by the explosion. It still surprises him how drastically his fate has shifted ever since Seoyeon entered his life. He even managed to blackmail the Special Task Force commander. That is good news though, because it proves the prophesied future is not set in stone. If fate can be altered once, it can be altered again. With that risky thought in mind, he takes a gamble he never would have considered before, and casts corruption over every single egg. Meanwhile, Bonggu keeps teasing the anglerfish, tricking them into thinking they are seconds away from securing an easy meal. As the scarlet squid, he baits them into launching out of the water. A far deadlier surprise awaits them above the surface. Seoyeon hurls her harpoon with terrifying force, bursting them mid-air like grotesque water balloons. Then she spots Lord Minold standing atop the nest, casually playing with what is pretty much a mountain of bombs. Panicked, she swims toward him at full speed, screaming at him to run immediately. But the madman refuses to budge, stubbornly holding his ground until the eggs finally detonate. The scene shifts to a few moments earlier back on the shore. Yunseo receives a call from her father, who immediately asks if she is safe. As she begins explaining everything that has happened, his tone suddenly turns serious. He cuts her off, ordering her to gather everyone and evacuate as quickly as possible. Apparently, he just received a warning from another division's commander. That commander revealed the anglerfish are far from ordinary monsters. He admitted that many of his subordinates died during a dungeon raid involving them. That information was never made public. While the hunters were attempting to clear out the eggs inside the dungeon, a massive explosion occurred. If eggs are present, getting anywhere near them is extremely dangerous. The moment he says that, a colossal explosion erupts exactly where the nest was. Unseo and the others freeze, staring at the rising smoke in stunned silence. She suddenly recalls Minjun explaining that scarlet anglerfish are vicious creatures that typically prey on their own kind. It makes no sense for them to attack humans on the shore, which is why he chose to investigate in the first place. All rational thought leaves her as she drops her phone and sprints toward the blast site. The horrifying realization that her beloved sergeant was inside that explosion shakes her. The others rush to stop her, warning that there could be additional blasts waiting to go off. Overwhelmed and helpless, she screams his name at the top of her lungs. Right on cue, Sergeant Kim Minjun casually walks out onto the shore like he just finished an intense swim workout. Almost like he wasn't just in the middle of a nuclear detonation. An hour earlier, Seoyeon had been minding her own business when the shapeshifter suddenly crashed through the window. Without hesitation, she began beating him up for being useless as usual. However, he stunned her by announcing that he successfully secured their fake passports. With a smug grin, he told her to call him Ronald McDonald from now on. Not amused, Seoyeon stated she would continue calling him a parasite, because that's what he is. She also questioned whether the passports were even legitimate. Suddenly her eye began burning intensely, and a vision flooded her mind. In the vision, she saw Minjun swimming toward the nest, luring the anglerfish away, right before a sudden explosion goes off. Not long after, the resort grounds are littered with bodies. Grieving relatives stand beside their loved ones, unable to process the devastation. In her vision, Seoyeon and Bonggu stand beside one body as well, refusing to believe what happened. The moment she regained her senses back then, she screamed at Bonggu to locate their master immediately, because he was in grave danger. Now in the present, she watches that exact nightmare threaten to unfold again before her eyes. Before she is overcome with grief, a familiar face suddenly rises from the water behind her. She spins around and demands to know if he is all right, and our boy casually admits he made a massive mistake by casting corruption on the eggs. She assures him that him destroying the eggs still saved countless lives. Compared to the catastrophic vision she witnessed, this explosion was nothing. She is relieved to see he survived the explosion. However, Minjun calmly states that he did not exactly survive on his own. Bonggu sacrificed himself to shield him from the blast. His attempt to wipe out the eggs was not fast enough, and the explosion detonated midway through the process. At the final second, a tentacle wrapped around him and tossed him out of there. After completing his duty, his loyal servant and closest friend gave him one last goofy smile before the blast got him. Seoyeon trembles, struggling to accept that Bonggu is truly gone, and swears she will honor his sacrifice forever. Then Minjun squints at the water beside them and notices a familiar body floating nearby. Somehow, Bonggu survived the blast, though both of his hands are completely gone. The two bros immediately pull each other into a relieved embrace, sharing a ridiculous but heartfelt moment. Watching this unfold, Seoyeon's respect for him deepens even further. For the first time, she calls him by his actual name instead of an insult. Soon after that, backup forces arrive, and the entire situation is swiftly brought under control. Normally, survivors would be detained for a thorough investigation. However, Minjun and Major General Sun Taiho share a quiet mutual understanding, so he is allowed to leave without complications. Even so, the official report credits him almost entirely for neutralizing the threat. Later that afternoon, the division begins packing up and preparing to depart. The girls are disappointed that their vacation ended on such a sour note, especially with the resort closing early until the area is deemed safe again. Standing on the hotel rooftop, the sergeant asks Seoyeon where Bonggu disappeared to. She replies that he is currently recovering from his injuries, and his regeneration is progressing unusually fast. Minjun finds it impressive that Bonggu sustained little damage for someone who was so close to the blast radius. He thinks to himself that the guy is built different. Then he notices something weird, asking Seoyeon why she is still wearing the outfit he bought her weeks ago. When he questions whether she has washed it even once, she starts sniffing it. He facepalms the moment she explains she won't buy new clothes because that is a waste of his hard-earned money. Right then, a tiny blob of demonic energy slams itself against his face. After an awkward silence, he yells at the annoying little nightwalker and orders it to calm down. The little guy grins and reports to him that a gate will be appearing soon. While Seoyeon remains distracted, sniffing her dirty clothes, Minjun suddenly asks if she wants to officially join the Korean hunters. She accepts without hesitation, and he briefs her on their first mission together. The next day, they head into the city, where she shows up wearing a brand new outfit that looks almost unfairly cute. He asks if she feels alright, and she awkwardly admits she is uncomfortable wearing such expensive clothes he paid for. He bluntly tells her to stop worrying about trivial nonsense and focus on the plan. His harsh but straightforward words oddly reassure her, and she activates her unpredictable demon eye. Normally, the artifact triggers on its own without warning. However, there are ways to consciously use its foresight ability. First, the user must be near the location where the event will occur. Only the near future can be glimpsed, and the greatest limitation is the heavy amount of demonic energy it consumes. Our sergeant feels genuine pain every time his precious demonic energy drains with each passing second. Still, it is all worth it the moment Seoyeon finally sees what they have been waiting for. She explains that a gate will open exactly 1 minute into the future, and a wave of wolf-type monsters will pour out. On top of that, she spots a unique variant that appears to be their leader. Minjun practically starts drooling at the thought of monopolizing the rewards, thanks to her absurdly broken foresight. Soon enough, the gate materializes, and the two stand ready to move. He reminds her to stick strictly to the plan he briefed her on earlier. Asking one final time if she is confident, he waits for confirmation, and she firmly nods. Minjun calmly repeats the two absolute rules. First, harm no innocent bystanders. Second, never let anyone witness your dark magic. With that settled, the monsters begin emerging from the gate. He tells her to perform at her best, and promises to step in immediately if things spiral out of control. The first wolf leaps out and unleashes a thunderous roar to assert dominance over the area. Seoyeon responds by drawing her demon whip, which is cleverly disguised as a baseball bat to hide her dark magic. Minjun intentionally stays out of direct combat. He is under heavy public attention after the Socho Resort incident. That is why he devised a strategy to farm dungeon rewards without personally stepping into the spotlight. The entire plan hinges on Seoyeon, one of the rare combat-specialized dark mages. The bloodthirsty redhead locks onto her target and swings that bat like she is playing whack-a-mole at an arcade booth. As expected, the lycanthrope's hide proves far too tough for her initial strike to deal real damage. However, she demonstrates her brilliant fighting instincts next. Sliding smoothly beneath the creature's claws, she closes the distance and delivers a clean, powerful smack straight to its jaw. The strike causes the werewolf to bleed from its mouth, but just then, Seoyeon notices something is not right. The giant mutt swipes down at her, but she manages to dodge and retreats back a bit. Holding its jaw, the monster starts growling, but the redhead simply holds the bat up and tells the monster to come at her. Meanwhile, Minjun doesn't seem bothered at all. The oversized pup lets out a huge roar, and the two fighters head toward each other for yet another clash. The werewolf makes another swipe at her, but she simply powers through it, blasting a huge hole in its body. Letting out its last breath, the dead monster then falls to the ground. Still calmly observing the situation, Minjun thinks that he didn't even need to step in for a second, and figures that Seoyeon will do just fine. Just then, the Hunter Corps shows up. In this world, all those who unlock skills need to be reported to the authorities. If people find out that some hotshot started showing off skills, they would become the center of attention. Our boy is severely opposed to receiving attention like that. Watching her walk away with the officer, Minjun thinks that she did manage to beat the wolf monster with just a bat, so hopefully no one will find out about the skill users at all. The scene then shifts to the guy from the fake dungeon who comments that it was indeed a skill. The guy is sitting in a room with Ji-yoon, who seems confused by what he just said. The brown-haired guy continues that he never saw anything like that before, so that is the only reasonable explanation. He repeats that he is sure Minjun used a skill back then. The blonde gets serious and tells him not to hold out on any details. The man sweats bullets as he finds it hard to reveal this information for some reason. Staring at Ji-yoon's business card, he finally opens up that it started when they reached the center of the fake dungeon to clear it. The monsters were piling up on them and they were in a really bad situation. When the orb containing the demonic energy started leaking, our boy materialized a giant dark sword out of nowhere, catching everyone by surprise. Minjun then swung the sword and took care of the monsters in the area in one swipe. Thanks to his help, everyone there survived that day. Finally, when he crushed the orb, they all started celebrating. However, our boy told them to hold their horses and wait for the exit to appear. All the hunters there start singing his praises, and he eats it right up. However, he then tells the group that they need to do a little something in return. Everyone gets overenthusiastic and agrees. He tells them that they should do their very best to forget anything unusual they saw there. Everyone gets surprised by the request, but agrees to do it with zero hesitation. Coming back to the present, Ji-yoon slams her hand on the desk, finding it hard to believe. The man asks if this will affect Minjun in a bad way. The blonde reminds him that our boy is now a sergeant first class. Ji-yoon then gets up and asks if the man has told this information to anyone else, to which he says that she is the first to know. Everyone wants to protect the secret. She then tells him to keep his mouth shut, even about the fact that he came here today. With that, Ji-yoon turns to leave, but the man calls out to her. He nervously asks her about the deal they made, to which she says that this information was definitely important. The blonde tells the guy to contact her when he gets discharged from his duties and whips out her phone. On the inside, she doesn't care one bit since giving a position in a raid squad is practically nothing in exchange for the info, assuming the company survives. She recalls that day when she lost her memories and all the important documents got stolen right under their noses, leaving her as the main suspect. All of this happened when she got involved with our boy. When the voice automatically sends her to voicemail, she starts throwing a tantrum and wonders why the hell her father isn't answering. She starts sweating as she slowly begins to realize that she messed with the wrong bull. A few days later, our boy makes his way back to his squad. His superior, First Lieutenant Cheolman, is relieved to see him doing well. The man grips his shoulders and apologizes for what happened on the vacation trip. The first lieutenant then informs him that there will be a minor investigation as a formality. Just then, First Sergeant Minji calls out to Minjun. The buff soldier starts advancing toward him, while our boy frantically reassures him that he is fine. Mr. Scarface tries to pull him into a bear hug, which our hero manages to dodge. At that moment, the first lieutenant remembers that the Division Ordnance Office left another paper for him. That catches the two off guard, and the brown-haired guy continues that they will be starting handicap training soon. The scene shifts to the entire squad marching through the forest area. One soldier starts complaining that the suit has gotten seriously heavier than last time and the heat is cooking them like an oven. The glasses guy asks what this training is called. It really makes sense for this to be called handicap training since the suit really limits your movements and stamina. He then announces menacingly that these suits will destroy the peace in their lives. Just then, the guy in front announces that he sees the destination and tells his men to stay in order. Meanwhile, our boy thinks that this power suit is not actually that bad weight-wise. What actually makes it unbearable is the fact that there is zero ventilation. When you combine that with the hot and humid weather, it becomes the perfect weapon for fatigue and dehydration. Initially, the suit doesn't feel so bad, but after some time it truly starts to weigh you down. Our boy thinks that the real enemy in this training program is the environment since it is all new and can be extremely unpredictable. Meanwhile at the camp, the other squad is busy setting things up. Yunseo instructs her group on what to do next. But then Mari notices that the 2nd Battalion is approaching them. Looking at their sweaty, tired faces, they all realize it must be the handicap training, making them sweat too. First Lieutenant Ji-yoon of the 4th Division walks up to Cheolman and warmly welcomes him. In the background, our boy instructs Sergeant Seung-ho to go check up on the men and give water. Mari immediately starts rushing toward him, but the black-haired girl stops her and reassures her that she can do so later. Ji-yoon then also greets Minjun, saying it's been quite a while. He thanks her for the help back in Hwachun. She replies that it should be them thanking him and starts teasing him for becoming a rising star in his division. Turning back to Cheolman, she asks if the group has been told what their mission is. The scene then shifts to the desert, where the ground is littered with rat monster corpses. The soldiers from the 2nd Battalion are busy clearing up the monster remains and loading them onto trucks. Looking at the dead rats, one of the men looks like he is about to pass out. Dongjin approaches him and asks what the matter is. The NPC says that he can deal with the physical training. However, he doesn't feel good on the inside after dealing with these seemingly innocent rat creatures. Han-young starts berating him, saying that the guy should be grateful that they are just on pickup duty, since they are still in handicap training mode. The guy immediately apologizes while the ponytail guy storms off. Dongjin reassures the soldier that the rats are actually very vicious monsters, especially when they come across food. That makes the NPC think for a second, and he then looks closely at the monsters. Dongjin then states that these guys are actually carnivores, which makes the soldier even more uneasy. Meanwhile, in the distance, the first lieutenant and our boy are tracking the 4th Battalion's movements, who are moving faster than expected. This sends our boy into brainstorming mode, and he then states that these monster groups are too small, which is why the girls are powering through them easily. However, it isn't natural for the groups to be this small. Cheolman thinks for a bit too before realizing that if there is a main colony, then this whole operation could get really messy soon. The sandstorms are also getting more powerful, meaning the groups cannot use firearms. If the 4th Battalion comes across a giant group in such an environment, then it would be really bad. Moving to the 4th Battalion, Yunseo easily slices through the monsters with her sword and makes short work of them. All the other girls do not fall behind either as they take care of the remaining rats. In the background, Ji-Yun receives a message on her device and says that they will investigate the issue. The blue-haired girl asks what happened now. The first lieutenant replies that the 4th Battalion guys are saying that the number of rat monsters feels really off. The buff blonde girl doesn't understand, but then Yunseo also agrees that there are really too few of these monsters. She continues that it might be possible that a huge group is nearby, which isn't exactly good news. Just then, a soldier calls out that there is a group of rats approaching them. However, she couldn't estimate the numbers since there are too many to count, and they are closing in fast. Back to our hero. Cheolman says that they might need to assist the girls, so they should better prepare. However, Minjun is now concerned that there just might be an entirely different reason altogether. While the girls prepare to take down the monsters, the first lieutenant asks our boy what he means by that. Minjun explains that there might be another predator that the rats are running from. Coming back to the girls, a giant worm monster erupts out of the sand, catching everyone by surprise. Yunseo stares at it in disbelief as she realizes it is a death crawler. Ji-Yeon shouts for her group to start retreating immediately and not to attack the enemy. With that, the entire 4th Battalion turns tail and runs full speed back toward the camp. During the retreat, the first lieutenant calls base and informs them of the situation. She tells them that she is heading straight toward the assembly area. Before she can say more, the Deathcrawler closes in on them, making the girls focus only on running. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Corps headquarters, Commander Ku calls the 110th Division commander who stands at attention. He tells the fat man that both the recent incidents in his division were resolved by outsiders. Commander Choi apologizes while Ku continues that he needs to step up his game. After that issue gets settled, Ku reviews the recent footage of Seo Yan defeating the wolf monster. The news reports that a civilian girl took down the monster and now wants to join the hunters. The commander tells his subordinate to have the special task force look into her. With that, the meeting is nearly done except for one last little thing. He reveals that Major General Song was recently arrested under allegations of leaking important data. The investigation will take a couple of days to clear up. However, there is an opening left. For that, General Ku is appointing Brigadier Moon to fill the role since he was going to be promoted anyway. Du stares daggers at the new guy while Moon just smiles back. Major General Du finds it odd that they are replacing the guy without the investigation being completed first. Just then, a scar-faced guy enters the room and whispers something into Ku's ear which makes him smile. After that, the commander addresses Major General Du and asks why he didn't bring the squad that took care of the Sacho incident like he was instructed to do. The bearded guy reveals that they are training at the moment, so it would disturb their schedule. Ku then states that both the battalions that were involved in the incident are now together in the same dungeon, which he finds to be a really big coincidence. However, what's more concerning is that the same dungeon is facing an issue right now. The evil man then asks if Du really did proper investigations before approving the training schedule and accuses him of rushing things. He keeps egging him on, but the bearded general simply tells him not to worry, as the investigation was done thoroughly. The scene then shifts back to the 4th Battalion, who are nearing the assembly area. The first lieutenant orders everyone to split up as they start heading in different directions. Major General Du tells the guy that they prepared even for unexpected scenarios to take place. Coming back to the fight, both the battalion's commanders are ready to take action. As the Deathcrawler roars at them, the 2nd Battalion's commander charges up his minigun and lets it rip. The bullets slam into the monster, making it stop its advance and forcing it to get back. The commander doesn't let up and keeps firing an endless wave of bullets. Meanwhile, the 4th Battalion commander picks up a metal spear and charges it with mana. After fully loading it up, she launches the spear like an Olympic thrower, which slams right into the monster's back. The male commander doesn't let up either as he keeps raining bullets down. The female commander picks up another spear and prepares to throw while her soldiers manage to climb back up to safety. Yunseo watches them fight and realizes that the superior's ranks aren't just for show. The female commander then shouts at her soldiers to fall back into their positions and to be on high alert. She tells them to prepare for battle as she unleashes another spear attack. The weapon pierces the monster's belly, making it roar in pain. After having enough, the Deathcrawler starts slithering away while the male commander keeps firing his minigun. Finally, after his bullets run out, he drops the mag to the ground and yells for a reload. The buff blonde sergeant immediately runs toward him with a new mag. She slides under the gun and pushes the new mag into place. Moving his gun back into position, the man continues his cover fire while the female commander launches another spear. Flying high into the sky, the spear closes in on its target. However, the monster manages to dodge the strike. The Deathcrawler then starts digging back into the sand and vanishes into a giant hole. The commanders finally calm down, but are ticked off that they didn't finish it. Since they are standing on solid rock, the monster cannot dig under them, so they should be fine. The 2nd Battalion commander tells the woman that they will have to go with the other plan now. Both of them seem uneasy about it. The man then smiles and orders into his walkie-talkie to go ahead with Plan B. Hearing that, a jeep soars off the cliff's edge and starts racing down the slope. The guy commandeering it thanks the commander through the walkie-talkie, and our sergeant yells at the giant creepy crawly to come out wherever it is. He has a whole fried rat buffet waiting. Minjun feels insanely energized after stripping off the bulky protective suit. The sensation hits him like he went Super Saiyan. Shaking with excitement, the rush makes him think he could probably fold that giant worm with his bare hands. Meanwhile, the driver grows increasingly nervous, unable to understand how his sergeant is not panicking even a little. Just a few hours earlier, Minjun had casually predicted that the biggest threat in the desert would be a large apex predator. Minutes after that, they received confirmation about a death crawler moving underground. Defying all common sense, our boy told the poor driver to trust his instincts, then confidently informed HQ that his squad would gladly assist in subjugating it. He explained that the giant worm tends to burrow deep underground whenever it gets injured. That was exactly why he proposed a plan to force it up to the surface from the start. However, Battalion Commander Jihe firmly stated that her unit would eliminate the threat before it ever had the chance to retreat. Therefore, Minjun should remain where he was. Smug as ever, our boy replied that unexpected variables always exist in combat, and there is never any harm in having backup ready. Caught off guard, the battalion commander narrowed her eyes and asked what he was really plotting. The poor driver nearly had a heart attack, praying his reckless sergeant would not say anything outrageous in front of her. To his shock, she ultimately approved the unconventional surprise attack strategy. Right after that, Minjun grabbed the driver with wild excitement and asked if he could handle a vehicle under extreme pressure. Back in the present, the driver cannot deny that the idea of using desert rat carcasses as bait is disturbingly clever. The constant vibrations from the jeep amplify the lure. What truly terrifies him, however, is the possibility of the deathcrawler erupting directly beneath the vehicle without warning. With that, the operation begins. Minjun taps the roof once as a signal, and the driver immediately swerves sharply to one side. A second knock follows, prompting a hard drift in the opposite direction. Even so, the deathcrawler shows no immediate interest. Our boy wonders if the scent of the desert rats is failing to reach it. Deciding not to rely solely on bait, he releases a pulse of demonic energy to further provoke the monster. Almost instantly, a deep rumble shakes the ground beneath them. He glances toward the machine gun squad positioned above, signaling them to prepare to unleash everything they have. When the timing feels perfect, Minjun slams his fist against the jeep one final time. The driver floors the accelerator at the last possible second. They barely dodge the massive deathcrawler erupting from the sand. While the driver nearly blacks out from fear, our sergeant looks like he is floating on cloud 9. The poor deathcrawler has no clue it just walked straight into a carefully staged ambush. From above, Battalion Commander Jihye launches spear after spear with deadly precision. Even so, the attacks fail to inflict critical damage because the spears lose momentum over long distance. Suddenly, Minjun spots one spear embedded in the sand ahead of them after she narrowly misses her mark. His eyes sparkle as if he just found a treasure chest. Without hesitation, he leans out from the side of the speeding jeep and snatches the fallen spear. Up on the ridge, the heavy gunner informs his commander that she will need to land the decisive blow herself. He cannot risk spraying bullets wildly and causing friendly fire. Hearing that, Commander Jihye steadies her stance and prepares another throw. Out of curiosity, she casually asks him what he thinks about Minjun's personality. After some deep thought, the gunner admits he has no idea how to answer that. In his opinion, no sane individual can truly comprehend that man's mad genius. His response earns a faint smile from her, as she hurls another spear, thinking she is beginning to understand why Yunseo admires him. Back on the battlefield, the driver pleads with the dangling lunatic to get back inside before he falls and breaks something. Flashing his signature grin, Minjun calmly states that he intends to slay it personally. Right then, another spear slams directly into the creature's massive body. Seizing the chance, the driver sharply spins the jeep around 180 degrees. From their vantage point, Commander Jihe and the heavy gunner stare in utter confusion at the sudden maneuver. That confusion instantly turns into shock when they see the absolute madman now riding on top of the moving vehicle, ready to lift off. The bizarre sight nearly gives the old man a seizure as he wonders what on earth is wrong with him. Watching closely, the girl suggests that Minjun might actually attempt to slay the creature by himself. Down below, the driver panics hard, silently praying to the RNG lords that he somehow survives this insane stunt. The moment they approach the beast's terrifying mouth lined with razor-sharp teeth, his last shred of confidence evaporates. In that instant, he regrets every life decision that led him to this moment. Right then, our sergeant gives the final signal, and the driver steers his jeep with everything he's got. Minjun launches himself off the roof. Everyone can only stare as his figure soars high into the sky. Channeling all his pent-up hatred for those ugly, heavy training suits, he floods the spear with an overwhelming surge of aura. Without hesitation, he drives the spear straight into the center of the monster's body, pumping it full of magic energy. At the same time, he grabs another spear and impales it again. The enormous surge of aura coursing through the creature makes its body swell violently before it detonates from the inside out. The battlefield falls silent as they witness our boy suspended mid-air after pulling off something utterly absurd. However, gravity quickly turns his big win into a clumsy L as he drops awkwardly from the sky. Back at headquarters, Major General Du is visibly appalled by the new proposal on the table. Yechin argues that they should resume the project and distribute mana weapons to everyone in the Korean hunters. Du takes offense immediately, dismissing it as a foolish suggestion. He reminds them that the previous attempt failed because the equipment crafted by Baeksan Industries suffered from terrible quality. Growing more agitated by the second, he shouts that repeating such a self-defeating move would drain massive funds from the Corps. Smirking wide, Commander Ku calmly asks the Major General to settle down. He then voices his support for Yechan's proposal, calling it a worthwhile consideration. The two schemers exchange a sleazy look, making it painfully obvious they're working together. Even so, Yunseo's father sides firmly with General Du. He states that there is no reason to revive such a failure project. Commander Ku, however, presents an argument that is difficult to dismiss. He insists mana weapons are far from pointless. Ignoring Sergeant Minjun's mind-blowing achievement reported only minutes ago would make them complete fools. News just came in that Minjun single-handedly killed a deathcrawler using a mana weapon. That cheeky remark infuriates General Du. He slams his hand down and shouts that the weapon quality is the real issue. He reminds everyone about the useless batch of faulty mana swords produced by Baeksan Industries. Smug as hell, Yechan calmly replies that the company has promised to improve the quality this time. Commander Ku supports the idea, suggesting they begin training soldiers with the new weapons immediately. Once again, the tables turn on General Du, leaving him more convinced than ever that the two are plotting something behind his back. A few days later, Lieutenant Cheolman receives a plaque recognizing his outstanding performance during training. Even so, he sincerely believes he does not deserve the praise because Minjun carried him the entire time. While the ceremony wraps up, Cheolman curiously asks when Minjun will finally receive a promotion. After everything that happened at Sokcho Resort, it seems only logical. On top of that, his exceptional performance during training even earned him a recommendation from Battalion Commander Jihye. Unfortunately, a promotion now appears unlikely due to newly established criteria set by the higher-ups. Confused by the sudden change, Cheolman asks why this is happening. The answer is blunt. It is most likely targeting Minjun. The higher command has decided that all hunters must now improve their proficiency with mana swords. Mastery of mana weapons will officially become a new requirement for promotion. At first, this excites Cheolman because his sergeant is a boss at controlling magic. However, the officer quickly clarifies that raw magical control is not the issue. Their real problem is that the instructor assigned to oversee them is none other than Captain Sang freaking Diok. The lieutenant stares in disbelief that such a piece of human trash has actually been assigned as their instructor. Cheolman quickly apologizes for instinctively insulting a superior officer. Even so, the man waves it off, saying it is fine because Sang-duk really is a pile of crap. Meanwhile, inside Minjun's division, the bottom feeder instructor struts confidently into the training room. He calls out to our sergeant, who immediately drops what he is doing and snaps into a sharp salute. Grease practically shines off the captain's smug face as Sang-duk casually asks how life has been treating him. Keeping his tone neutral, Minjun asks for the reason behind his visit. The captain informs him that the 2nd Battalion will soon conduct a mana sword training session. He smugly explains that the aura flowing through a mana weapon reflects the wielder's strength. His own sword, of course, is a special custom piece, unlike the mass-produced junk the other soldiers will receive. Hearing that, Minjun flashes back to the time when Sang-duk bragged about being the strongest mana weapon user in the division. Right before attempting his so-called ultimate strike, he got pounded by the dungeon boss instead. Minjun curiously asks if the captain plans to demonstrate that precise ultimate technique again during training. Embarrassed, Sang-duk insists that it only occurred because he wasn't in his best form that day. Brushing that aside, he asks if Minjun will be participating in the session as well. After all, demonstrating proficiency with a mana sword is now an official requirement for promotion. No matter how many achievements Minjun has stacked up, they will mean absolutely nothing if his assigned instructor refuses to give him a favorable evaluation. Hearing that, Minjun's expression hardens as he asks what exactly the captain is implying. Sang-deok smirks and brings up the previous incident where Minjun overwhelmed and shattered his special-made mana sword with pure magic aura. He admits it was impressive, almost too impressive. That is the problem. The self-proclaimed #1 mana instructor coldly questions whether Minjun intends to embarrass his superior in front of the trainees again. Raising his voice, he declares that fools who do not know their place have no place in his division. Looking pretty satisfied for a sore loser who just blackmailed someone, the captain takes his leave. On the day of the mana sword training drill, the troops line up one by one to learn. Captain Sang-deok begins by giving a demonstration, eager to show everyone what a professional looks like. He draws his blade, charges forward with aura flaring dramatically behind him, and delivers a powerful slash. Proud as hell, he states that the fortified steel block before them is twice as durable as ordinary metal. A regular sword would shatter before even leaving a scratch. According to him, that proves the overwhelming potential of mana swords in the hands of a master like himself. The new recruits immediately begin staring at him with admiration. Sang-deok soaks in their awed expressions, thoroughly feeding his ego. Among the crowd, however, Minjun senses that something is not right. Compared to Sang-deok's special blade, the swords handed to the trainees are barely F-tier in quality. With weapons that poor, performing well enough to earn a promotion-worthy evaluation is impossible. It does not take long for him to realize that this is all a scheme. Smirking, the captain asks if any trainee has the balls to step forward and show what they got. The soldiers glance at one another in hesitation. Smug as usual, Sang-deok remarks that not everyone can control aura as flawlessly as a mana master like himself. Then unexpectedly, an energetic voice breaks the silence. Minjun steps forward and enthusiastically volunteers. Captain Sang-deok is clearly not thrilled about that particular candidate, and asks him if he is sure. Without the slightest hesitation, Minjun confirms that he truly wants to give it a try. The other trainees begin cheering him on, excited to see what he can do. Cornered by the crowd's enthusiasm, Sang-deok reluctantly grants permission. As our boy walks past him, the captain mutters a warning that he better not embarrass him in front of everyone. Our sergeant flashes a wide grin. Back in Isgard, he witnessed corrupt superiors pressure their subordinates countless times. His long life taught him a simple truth: there is no world without trash in it, and good outcomes rarely come from bowing to intimidation. With that, he channels his aura into the magic sword at full force. The sudden surge alone nearly gives Sang-deok a heart attack. Minjun swings the blade down in one clean motion. The fortified steel block splits in half like it's made of paper, crashing loudly onto the floor. Shocked, every trainee looks at him with admiration. The smug captain looks seconds away from bursting a vein. Yet Minjun is not finished. He innocently informs the captain that his issued sword seems to have broken, possibly due to a quality control issue. Then, he politely requests permission to bring along his personal equipment next time. Sometime later, Captain Sang-deok watches all the hunters practice their mana training. He yells at them to focus on both concentration and stamina. He eggs them on, saying it has only been a minute so far, while the hunters look as if they are about to pass out. Looking at them struggling, the captain thinks that this is how the training is supposed to be. His phone rings, and when he sees who it is, he breaks out in a cold sweat. His tone completely changes when he addresses the person who asks how the plan is going so far. The captain tries to explain that he is really giving it his all, but our boy is just built different. He then looks at Minjun, who breaks yet another mana sword when he tries to channel his aura into it. Captain Sang-deok quickly turns around and rambles on that the kid broke through 3 swords and even managed to split the dense stone in front of everyone. He has no reason to fail him, but just then the guy on the line loses his temper. Major General Moon reminds him that he had been acting all confident earlier, which is why he was chosen for the mission. At a loss for words, the captain can only apologize. But Major General Moon tells the piece of trash to do the one job he was sent there to do, to prevent our boy from being promoted. He then threatens the captain that he could potentially miss his own promotion, which drains all the color from his face. Before Sang-deok can reply, the call is cut off, leaving him frustrated. Looking at Minjun, he wonders what the hell he is supposed to do in this situation. Meanwhile, Major General Moon puts his phone away angrily and adjusts his clothes before knocking on a door. Upon receiving the order, he enters and salutes his superiors. Sitting there is Commander Ku with a bearded old man. The old man then tells him to sit down, who turns out to be the CEO of Baeksan Industries, Jong Daesan. The scene then shifts to the 104th Division headquarters, to the division commander's office. Minjun walks into the room and salutes Major General Du, who tells him to take a seat. Our boy's mind is racing with questions about why he was called here, since there is no special promotion. The bearded man tells him to open the box in front of him, which catches him off guard. He does so and finds a specially designed mana sword and picks it up. The Major General smiles and announces that this is a new test model made by another company. It far surpasses the trashy ones the hunters have been using for training. Feeling the blade, our boy comments that its weight and the amount of stamina it will consume might be the deciding factor. The Major General agrees that it is 5 times heavier, but is even better than the ones assigned to officers and requires more stamina. He tells our boy to take it for a test run and give a review later. Minjun accepts the offer happily while thinking that this won't break when he charges it with his aura. Major General Du then teases him, asking if he came here expecting a promotion, but our boy manages to deflect the topic. The superior then reveals that he was qualified for promotion, but he deliberately delayed it. Minjun asks for a reason, to which the bearded man replies that he wants to make him an officer. By taking that pathway, he can become a platoon vice commander and instantly reach the 2nd lieutenant rank. This way is much faster than following the sergeant pathway. On the inside, the Major General tells himself that this will help divert the army's focus away from him for a while. He then says he believes in our boy and asks whether he is up to the task. Minjun takes the bait and declares that to get promoted, all he needs to do is prove himself with his skills. For that, he is willing to give it a shot. Major General Du smiles at that reply, and then remembers that General Taiho wanted to pass along something too. After the beach incident, the guy has become generous to our boy whenever he gets the chance. Our hero's eyes widen in surprise when he opens the box to reveal a runestone. The scene then shifts to the restricted area in Cheorwan, which is now completely deserted. Minjun makes his way through the empty streets with the box, while recalling that until recently, this area was overrun with monsters, so it was abandoned, which is why this makes it the perfect place for what he is about to do. Stopping in front of a partially built apartment complex, he decides that this spot will do. He then makes his way up the stairs and takes out the runestone while smiling like crazy. Our boy then begins channeling his demonic energy into the rune, causing it to glow. The runestone is actually a pretty neat item that can randomly raise stats when used. The runestone then fully activates under the energy's influence and opens a portal to a dimension of growth. Crushing the remains of the stone in his hands, our boy thinks that if he uses the same tactics he did back in Isgard, then he can get rewards that are far superior to simply consuming it. With that thought, he makes his way through the portal and enters a creepy forest area. This place is actually a secret dungeon that opens when you charge the runestone with demonic energy. However, since they are extremely rare, he rarely came across any. Each stone leads to a different dungeon with a variety of different monsters. Even then, one thing doesn't change. Our boy stops walking as he spots a red monkey staring at him with a nasty look. The monster screams, and a whole group of them suddenly appears in the trees. That doesn't scare Minjun one bit as he takes out his sword and recalls that if he manages to take them all down, then an epic level growth boost is guaranteed for him. Just then, the monster in front screams, and the entire group rushes forward to attack. Our boy simply walks forward while aura farming and starts slashing them left and right. The monkeys stand no chance as he plays Fruit Ninja with them, earning a perfect score. The one with the scar tries to sneak attack him but is hit by a dark arrow that pierces straight through its skull. The condition to clear this dungeon is simply to defeat every monster inside it. However, he has no idea how many there actually are, so he needs to be smart and conserve his demonic energy and stamina. While he runs away, the monkeys gang up on him and try to jump him all at once. He thinks he really needs to save his demonic energy, so he instead charges up his mana sword. Our boy then lets out a huge blast that blows the monsters away. The ones in the back hesitate a bit as he starts monologuing about how he recently got a really fun toy to mess around with. Determined to test it out fully, he rushes the remaining monsters who are frozen in fear. Our boy cuts them down mercilessly, finding the sword to be super functional. Releasing another huge swinging slash attack, he finds that the sword is extremely sturdy too, and doesn't break. He then goes on a rampage, reducing the monkeys to corpses until only a few remain hiding behind the trees. The one in front lets out a war cry, but our boy isn't impressed and says that dealing with them is light work. Just as the monkey charges, he detects a faint presence nearby and simply smacks the monster away. He continues to give the same treatment to the other monkeys while thinking that he definitely felt some demonic energy just now. His eyes widen in shock as he feels something grip his foot. The scar-faced monkey that he had shot earlier suddenly comes back to life and grabs onto his foot. That confuses him, since he is sure he took it down, and he kicks it away. Meanwhile, the other dead monkeys start getting up too, making him realize there must be a necromancer nearby. Minjun gives a crazy smile as he thinks it might be related to the demonic energy he felt earlier. Somewhere nearby, an injured monkey is taking its last breath only to get stabbed in the back. After that, the monkey emits demonic energy and rises again. The black monkey with the staff then smiles at its work while it continues to control its dead comrade. This catches our boy's interest, who then starts charging up a spell. He releases his dark arrow skill and comments that the necromancer monkey is better than he expected. The black monkey doesn't move from its spot as two of its subordinates move in front and take the hit. The heartless monster then uses his necromancer skills and turns the two into the undead as well. It orders the zombie monkeys to attack, and they slowly start closing in on our boy. Minjun throws his sword sheath down and starts charging up more demonic energy. He figures that this isn't the time to be saving his trump cards and focuses the energy into his hand, releasing his Corruption Rain skill. That takes care of the living monsters, however it doesn't hurt the undead much. For that, he summons his Demon Bomb skill and launches the tiny guys toward the enemies. The flying creatures attach themselves to the undead monkeys like leeches. Minjun smirks as he then snaps his fingers and causes them all to explode, lighting them up like firecrackers. Dead smoking bodies litter the ground while our boy stares down the black monkey. Looking at its angry face, he taunts the necromancer for thinking that it actually had a chance to win. That ticks off the monster, who then rips off its bone necklace and starts channeling demonic energy into it. The black monkey starts growing larger, as if he just took anime steroids, while the other monkeys watch in fear. Our boy remarks that he has seen plenty of juiced-up monsters but never one that could do so on its own. He wants to find out how, but figures the monster isn't one to talk to anyway. Just then, the necromancer starts growling and rushes forward to attack. That snaps our boy out of his thoughts, who meets the attack head-on with his sword, cracking the skull on top of the staff. The necromancer doesn't let up and starts whacking him with the stick, but he manages to parry all its blows. Just as it was about to land a fatal hit, Minjun sends it flying away with a swipe of his sword and smirks at it. Charging mana into his sword, he closes in on the monster, determined to take its head off. However, the black monkey manages to maneuver around him and aims for his head. The strike connects with our boy, but the necromancer is caught off guard when it realizes the attack was blocked at the last second. Our hero then tries to swing his own weapon, but the black monkey blocks his hand, leaving them in a stalemate. However, that isn't the only trick up Minjun's sleeve, as he activates his Corruption Rain skill again, which eats away at the staff. That forces the monster to retreat back. Meanwhile, our boy throws the sword down and declares that though it is fun to fight like a hunter, he wants to try something different. Seeing an opening, the necromancer charges at him at full speed, while our boy takes a running stance and mentions that he is a dark mage at heart. He activates his vicious charge skill and slams into the black monkey, sending it flying back. Minjun doesn't let up and uses his giant hand skill to hold the monster in midair. The monster tries to shout something, but our boy isn't listening, and channels demonic energy into his hand and pulls the monster forward. With a crazy smile on his face, he finally activates his Dark Arrow skill and blasts a huge hole through the black monkey, giving it the Rengoku treatment. The monster spits out blood as it finally falls to the ground dead. After that, the demonic energy starts flowing into our boy, making him super excited since he only came here to raise normal stats only. After absorbing a certain amount, the system tells him that he has now unlocked demonic energy of desire, which allows him to boost all his stats for a short period of time. Dismissing the system, he twists his head toward the remaining monkeys with a menacing smile. Our boy then announces that it is time to stop messing around and get his reward. After slashing through the last one, the system announces that he has cleared the dungeon and his stats have increased. He pulls the screen up to check the details and is caught off guard when he sees he received an extra reward. Since he defeated more monsters than there actually were in the dungeon due to them coming back as undead, the system counted them twice. He doesn't question the small stuff and happily accepts the reward. The screen tells him that he can choose between the skills that the necromancer monkey had. Seeing the displayed options, he gets more excited than ever. The first skill, Monkey Lord, allows him to control all monkey-type monsters, which seems like trash. The Undead King skill allows him to perform necromancy, however that would immediately get him in trouble in the real world. That only leaves the last option, the Everlasting Motion Machine, which makes him wonder if this is the same skill as it was back then. Minjun drops into a flashback to his days back in Isgard. After he defeated the steroid zombies and Frankenstein, the noble there barely manages to sit up, wondering how the hell they were defeated so easily. Minold removes his hood and tells the man to listen carefully. He demands to know if those monsters were juiced with demonic energy and how he did it. The noble laughs it off, saying that giving demonic energy to monsters that do not possess any naturally is basically poisoning them. Our boy repeats his question, but the blonde guy refuses to leak the secret. Just then, Minold slams his foot down, barely missing the guy's head, and states that it doesn't matter since he plans to leave this place anyway. However, he intends to finish the mission he started. With that, he raises his fist high and tells the man to have a good sleep, but then stops as the noble finally decides to reveal the secret. The noble reveals that monsters who possess demonic energy have a skill that allows them to continuously produce it. That is why the faction researched how to isolate and transfer that skill to other monsters. That puts Minjun deep in thought, as he recalls that all the irregular monsters he faced in the past must have gotten the skill. He wonders if a dark mage would be able to obtain this skill. However, the noble seems to read his thoughts and mentions that a human can't do so. He explains that the faction used to transplant the monster's body parts to transfer the skill. That comment makes our boy enraged, and he asks if the thugs experimented on the dark mages that they kidnapped so far. Seeing the look on his face, the noble refuses to answer the question, however, that only ticks him off more. He states that his refusal is already an answer. Coming back to the present, he thinks that if this is the same skill the noble talked about, then this will simply make him overpowered. When he taps on the screen, the demonic energy begins to flow into his body and makes him tense in pain. Minjun manages to endure the worst of it, after which the system announces that the skill has successfully adjusted to his body. He slams his fist into the ground, satisfied by what he has accomplished. The next day, he walks back to his battalion and asks how their day went. The whole squad stops what they are doing and simply freezes up. Kim immediately stands at attention and salutes him like a model soldier. That makes Minjun suspicious, and he asks if he is doing all right. The troublemaker smiles and says that he is just being nice since they will not be seeing each other much from now on. He then congratulates our boy on his promotion and dramatically tells him not to forget about them. Minjun then drops the bomb that he was not promoted, which makes the soldier flabbergasted. Han-young steps forward and asks if that was not the reason he went to the division headquarters, but he simply says no. Kim desperately asks if our boy does not wish to climb the hierarchy ladder and starts going on about the perks. Our boy simply teases them back and says that they must have really enjoyed his absence. The two troublemakers break down into tears while our boy continues to say that he understands how they feel about him in charge. Kim's mood instantly lights up, but our boy shoots him down and says that the internet is just too slow over there. All his game progress will be lost, so he decided that it would be better to stay here. That reasoning makes both of them extremely irritated. The sergeant then steps forward and asks why Minjun went there in the first place. He replies that the Major General gave him a mana sword. The two troublemakers look at each other in confusion. They then ask how he is feeling now, since he must have been enthusiastic about the promotion. Seeing that his mood is way too peaceful, the two figure that something good did happen to him. The two keep bickering while our boy simply smiles as he thinks that something extraordinary did indeed happen. Just then, the speaker goes off and declares that there is an emergency, which stops everyone in their tracks. Our boy wonders what happened this time since the voice sounds really anxious. Sometime later, the entire battalion is slowly clearing the forest. Our boy raises his hand and tells his squad to take a break for now. The entire group sits down and has some refreshments. Kim comments that the forest is way too silent and wonders if the other guys have found a lead yet. The ponytail guy replies that the area is too big, so it will take some time. It has been a long time since a monster came down the mountains, especially an ogre. Kim asks if this will be the first time Minjun fights such a monster. He plays along, saying that it is, while in reality, he ran fades with them multiple times back in Isgard. Dongjin then states the random fact of the day that the Hunter Corps have never officially captured an ogre alive since it is built like a tank. He keeps rambling while our boy gets a devious idea and asks if it would be a hell of an achievement if someone actually managed that. Before Dongjin can fully form a proper reply, Han-young slaps a hand over his mouth and says that they are supposed to fight it as a whole company. However, it is already too late as our boy starts salivating and the entire squad realizes that their situation is truly doomed now. Just then, a giant roar fills the entire forest and Minjun immediately gets up. He tells his men to keep watch while he goes to take a quick look. Before waiting for an answer, he runs off and starts heading toward the noise. After walking for a few minutes, he finally notices something in the distance. Our boy starts sneaking toward the noise and finally finds the giant monster as it snacks on a deer. Looking at the ugly creature, he starts smiling like crazy while he thinks that his promotion is guaranteed now. While the monster stays busy with its deer mukbang, our boy puts all his equipment away and calls out to it with zero fear. The ogre looks confused for a moment while he eggs it on for daring to snack on this side of the mountain. Finally snapping to its senses, the ogre starts approaching Minjun, who is already thinking of a way to capture it alive somehow. The ugly creature finally attacks, however. Our boy simply uses his giant hand skill and immobilizes it. He then rushes forward and slams his fist into the monster's belly. He tells the monster that he will try to limit his strength and warns it not to die so quickly. Meanwhile, the other squad members hear the fighting sounds and immediately spring into action. They rush toward the scene only to get completely flabbergasted as they see the monster flying back from the punch. Minjun loosens his shoulder muscles while the ogre stands up and spits out a broken tooth. At that moment, Han-young yells at him to move out of the way. That distracts our hero, who yells at the guy not to interfere, while the ogre raises its hand high. However, he easily dodges the strike and tells his squad members not to fire even a single bullet. Minjun yells at them not to ruin his chances at promotion and declares that he will capture the ogre alive. Han-young then demands to know if he even shares the coordinates with the other groups. Minjun immediately starts lecturing him since that would mean losing his achievement. Even Kim calls him out and says that he is acting too rashly. All of a sudden, the ogre starts grinning and takes a deep breath. Minjun recognizes what it is about to do and covers his ears while the rest of the squad looks at him in confusion. The monster then lets out a huge roar, which makes all the squad members pass out instantly. Putting his hands down, our boy starts grinning like crazy and uppercuts the monster, which makes it stumble back. Seeing the crazy look on his face, the ogre wisely decides to run away. But before it can get far, a rope suddenly latches around its neck. Minjun starts reeling it in and drags the monster to the ground. It then opens its eyes only to see our boy staring down at it. He then delivers a demonic energy-infused knuckle sandwich straight to its head and finally confirms his victory. Standing up, our boy announces that the ogre really was built like a tank. The scene shifts to the battalion commander's office, where the guy receives the news about what happened. The man gets overly excited and tells the person over the phone to have them all transported here quickly. Song quickly guesses that they captured the ogre alive. The old man then orders him to quickly inform headquarters that our boy managed this incredible feat and slams the door shut. Meanwhile, Song wonders how the kid manages to pull off these impossible tasks. The next morning, everyone stays busy celebrating the win and acting goofy as usual. Minjun looks at the entire scene and feels glad that they are all in high spirits. At that moment, First Lieutenant Cheolwon walks over to him and informs him that he is the reason they are having this party. The guy tells Minjun that he really did well. The two then talk about the ogre, which is worth around 2 million credits. That makes Cheolwon surprised since he never knew that a single monster could be worth that much. As the two walk toward the building, the first lieutenant tells him that he is glad that he secured the ogre, especially since the battalion commander has been in a salty mood these days. He continues that even though the commander never lets his emotions get in the way of work, the general atmosphere has improved. However, it seems that he spoke too soon as the commander suddenly stares daggers at them and gives off a menacing aura. Cheolwon notices the battalion commander's mood, but the man puts on a forced smile and asks what they are talking about. Sometime later, Captain Sangdok starts going off that it was wrong for our boy to act on his own. He keeps bickering while Minjun wonders what the hell he ever did to him. The captain concludes that our boy simply got lucky this time, but at that moment, the battalion commander cuts him off. The old man asks him about the result of yesterday's monster raid. The captain starts sweating and replies that the squad captured the ogre alive. The commander asks him if that result is possible based on pure chance. He continues that the captain does have a point, but then starts roasting him for bringing this topic up during a celebration party. Captain Sangdok immediately starts apologizing, but the commander is already on a roll. The old man tells him that he trusts his juniors and that you cannot always follow protocol on the battlefield. He continues that the captain would know all this if he went out in the field more. Sangdok immediately starts blabbering that he went on a mission in Japan recently. However, the commander then asks if it was the same mission where Minjun saved everyone. At a loss for words, the captain then stares at our boy, who laughs right back at him and feels satisfied that the piece of trash finally got what he deserved. The commander then calls Minjun forward and tells him to take a seat while everyone around him smiles at the entire scene. That makes him realize that this place truly has his best interests at heart. The scene then shifts to Major General Moon at the Hunter Corps headquarters. Feeling his phone vibrate, he takes it out to check the notification, only for his mood to take a dump. Captain Sangdok messaged him that he tried everything he could but still cannot ruin our boy's reputation. Moon starts ranting, but quickly realizes that he cannot do anything from his side to stop the promotion either. In the end, he realizes that he is no longer able to use the promotion card to get Minjun transferred to the special task force. The guy starts swearing under his breath only for Major General Du to suddenly appear behind him. He immediately forces his anger down and asks what the man is doing here. The bearded general keeps egging him on about what he said, but Moon quickly plays it off that he was talking to himself. Major General Du then walks ahead and calls Moon out for not knowing that he was summoned here by headquarters to discuss our boy's promotion. That makes Moon sweat since he realizes that this situation will put him in a tight spot, and he starts wondering what the commander has planned. Major General Du then shakes his hand and apologizes for not congratulating him earlier on his own promotion. Moon manages to say thank you only for Du to pull him closer with a serious look on his face. He tells the guy to do his best to serve the nation and then walks through the door, which leaves him completely shaken. Moving to the balcony, the Major General walks up to the commander. After saluting each other, the commander assumes that he came to talk about Minjun's promotion. Ku reviews that he has received regular reports about our boy's achievements, but he never expected him to take down the ogre alone. He agrees to the promotion, but before Du can leave, he stops him and announces that he has a condition. That catches the Major General by surprise, but the commander continues that Minjun must complete a special task force mission before he can receive the promotion. Major General Du starts wondering why he was called here since he previously assumed that the commander simply wanted to see the kid up close. Just then, it suddenly clicks in his mind, and he asks what sort of dungeon requires the attention of the special task force. The commander calmly answers that they have discovered a double-layer dungeon. Meanwhile, Minjun is busy meditating inside the gym. Kim spies on him from behind the door while Han-young asks what he is doing. The guy answers that our boy never skips training even during parties, and the two begin to wonder if this is what separates him from everyone else. The two ask themselves when the hell he even sleeps if he keeps training like this all the time. Meanwhile, our boy focuses on upgrading his everlasting motion machine skill since the production rate still feels slow. While training, he discovered that if he mentally imagines the skill as a gear turning inside his body, then the training becomes much more effective. After the demonic energy production increases, he stands up and declares that it is enough for today. He wonders how overpowered the skill will become once he levels it up even more. Just then, he hears his subordinate calling him through telepathy. Bangu tells him that he has really great news to share. He tries to say something about demonic energy, but keeps getting interrupted, which begins to tick Minjun off. Sometime later, he sits both of his subordinates down and lectures them for fighting again. The shapeshifter starts complaining that the Nightwalker tried to take credit for his work, and the two prepare to throw hands. After having enough, our hero yells at them to stop and concludes that the two found the crystal together. Both of them start bickering again about who did what, but then Minjun menacingly repeats his earlier statement. They instantly agree and suddenly act like best buddies as if they never fought before. Despite feeling angry that they risked their lives, he still thanks both of them for their hard work, which makes them extremely happy. Our boy then crushes the crystal and absorbs the demonic energy into his body. All of a sudden he opens his eyes as he realizes that he has unlocked a new skill called Dark Sider.